Skylanders! KAOS is back to destroy Skylands.
Again?
Downer.
That guy owes me $5!
On October 11th, 2011, at least if you're in North America, after a lot of advertisement, and I mean a lot of advertisement, the game Skylanders Spyro's Adventure first hit the shelves to the masses, becoming pretty much an overnight success. The idea of using a Toys to Life system, well, had been tried before with UB Funkies, Skylanders really was the thing that popularized this genre. For people too old, and I can't believe I'm saying this now, and for people too young to experience these games when they first came out, Skylanders might just seem like another short-lived genre. But I feel like this series is a prime example of something that you just had to be there to know what the experience was truly like. Going into your favorite store, whether it be Target or Walmart, and seeing Skylanders fill the shelves at the game section was a sight to behold. Personally, for me, I remember getting the game for Christmas that same year and was instantly hooked, and so are many of my friends. Going to each other's houses, seeing what Skylanders they had, and then proceeding to beg your parents for some money to get the next coolest Skylander, I mean, there was nothing quite like it. And what made Skylanders so captivating for many kids, myself included at the time, wasn't just the novelty of these Toys to Life system, it was how seamlessly it was integrated into the game itself. It wasn't just about collecting toys, it was about bringing them to life in a way that felt almost magical. I mean, watching the Skylander be put on the portal and then seeing it come to life in real time on your TV screen just felt unreal. And on top of that, with so many different characters to collect, that also meant there were so many different play styles that you could play these games with, adding to the replayability. From Spyro's iconic fiery charge to Trigger Happy's golden guns or Eruptor's lava bar, there were so many ways to play Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. It was truly groundbreaking at the time of its release. But before we continue this video headfirst, there's something I want to mention. So about 2 years ago, I made a 3-hour retrospective on Skylanders Superchargers. Now, when I initially posted that video, I assumed it would be the first video in a long series of Skylanders retrospective, and that still is technically true, as this is the second video in that series, but it's been so long since that video came out that I kind of feel like I needed to talk about it real quick. So with me saying that, I'm announcing here that the next couple of my videos are all going to be very long Skylanders retrospective videos. Except for maybe 1 or 2 off videos, I do plan to finish this series of long Skylanders retrospectives that I started 2 years ago now. And I think later this year it's actually going to be 3 years since that video came out. Now, since I already did a Superchargers one, I'm not going to do another one. I'm just going to go from Trap Team to Imaginators. So with that out of the way, I guess you can say I'm finally finishing the Skylanders retrospective project. So even though this is technically the second video in this retrospective, it's retroactively become the first video, and now Superchargers is the second video in the retrospective, but it actually is also now going to be the 5th video eventually when all the videos get done, even though it was the first video to come out. Also, just like in the Superchargers video, I am fully replaying the game because I want to have a fresh experience with the game before I give a retrospective on it. But, you know, before we really get into it, I think, just like last time, you know, I have a lot of opinions about these games. I feel like you always like to get another opinion. So, let's see what that person has to say.
Hey Skylander Gamer TV, it's Lex, and you asked me what is my favorite thing about the Skylanders game Skylanders Spyro Adventure, or favorite memory associated. And I honestly was so young and so little, I don't remember a whole lot, but I just remember like how fun and different like the maps were and the characters were, and it was just such a different game from so many games. Like you could put a character on a portal and it would just go into the screen above you. Like I thought it was the coolest thing when I was younger. But I probably just thought like even KAOS, like all the bosses and like everything that went into the game with like the evil and the good and like all the fun maps, like that was probably my favorite thing. But I can't remember a certain memory because it was from so long ago. But yeah, thanks, bye.
When you start Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, the first thing that greets you is the disembodied face of Eon. For those unfamiliar, Eon serves as your guide throughout the game and acts as its narrator too, though we'll touch on that more shortly. He introduces you to Skylands, a magical realm once kept in balance by Portal Masters and Skylanders. However, he warns of the return of a looming threat, the Darkness. I would usually kind of rant about how the main bad entity being the Darkness is kind of just boring, but then again, the main audience range for these games were like 7 to 13 year olds, so it's not that big of a deal. After all that, Eon tells you that he sent his assistant Hugo to seek you out and send you to the first chapter of the game, Shattered Islands. And the very first in-game voice you hear is Captain Flint.
Wowzers, look at all these balloons leaving. Parking's gonna be a snap.
the self-proclaimed the best pilot in all of Skylands. When you enter the level, the citizens of the area are flying in hot air balloons, so Hugo, the guy that Eon sent to find us, points out that they are not just flying around, they are evacuating the area because of a giant tornado. Once Hugo finishes explaining the situation, Eon steps in to announce that it is our time to shine, and you place your Skylander on the portal. Something interesting here is that if you use one of the 3 starter pack Skylanders, Hugo will actually say your name when you enter the game, but if you use any other Skylander, he'll just refer to you as a Skylander. Once you're into the level, you have to save some Mabu, which are basically just the people of Skylands, even though humanoid figures do exist in Skylands. You know what, just go with it. You have to shoot down some debris to unlock a gate, move a giant turtle, you know, the usual. After moving the turtle, we get introduced to bounce pads, which do exactly what they sound like. Spring you up to higher ground, since you cannot independently jump in Skylanders Spyro's adventure. Along the way, you'll discover collectibles like legendary treasures and story scrolls. When you find a story scroll, Eon reads it aloud, solidifying his role as both the guide and narrator of Skylands. But it's not until the near end of the first level that you fight your first enemies of the game, Chompies, which are very easily defeated. After we make our way past the Chompies, we talk to the NPC Blobbers, who will be a reoccurring NPC throughout the entire series. He informs us that the royal Mabu family is trapped behind a gate, so we have to go save them, which is pretty easy since you just need to jump on some bounce pads and grab a key to free them. Once we get done with that, Hugo starts talking about other reports of terrible disasters around Skylands, but we have no time to wait, so we hop in the balloon with Flynn and Hugo, and just like that, we have finished the first ever level of Skylanders. You know, when it comes to looking at levels, I usually give first levels of games a lot of leniency because first levels of games have 2 jobs to do. One is obviously be a good level, but they also have to introduce most of the important game mechanics, but this is a pretty solid level overall. It has a cool theme and it's fun to play through, albeit very short, which may be the theme for this game. After we finish the first level, we get another cutscene that explains how Skylands got into the mess that it's currently in. Hugo narrates over the cutscene and explains to us that Skylands was also protected by portal masters, and Eon was the greatest one. In this cutscene, we see Eon not in his bodiless form, watching over the core of light, the artifact that is supposed to keep the darkness away from harming Skylands. However, with Eon being the last portal master left and growing weak with age, he knew that the darkness would return soon, and that it did. The darkness, along with KAOS, returned to destroy the core of light. KAOS gets introduced here as the game's main villain. He looks ominous at first, only for it to be revealed right after that he's just a small bald dude. And with him comes Glumshanks, his ambivalent troll sidekick. KAOS then begins ranting about how Eon thought banishing him to the Outlands would stop him, and how it hasn't. Then KAOS starts insulting Eon about how old he is, and he spawns his evil minions to destroy the core. But Eon sends out his Skylanders to protect it, which they do. But KAOS has another plan. We see a giant shadow of what looks like a Hydra, and then the camera zooms out and we see the island where the core rests on, and it gets destroyed. The explosion hurled KAOS back into the Outlands, but its force also scattered the fragments of the core of light across the farthest reaches of the universe. Master Eon was transformed into a spirit by the blast, while the Skylanders were swept away by its immense power. As they were flung through space, the fading magic of Skylands caused them to shrink. Eventually they landed on Earth, where we discovered them. You know, I really like that the game gave us a reason why the Skylanders exist in real life as small statues. The only thing I don't mention though is why I gotta put down all the dollars to buy them. There being an explanation is nice to see here, especially since later games do not do this. You know, I can always appreciate a game that tries its best at some solid world building. But after this cutscene, which sets up the game's conflict, we land with Flynn and Hugo at the ruins of what was left of the island where the core of light sat on. The ruins acts as the hub world for Skylanders Spyro's adventure, and to me, this is where Skylanders peaked when it comes to hub worlds. I really don't even think it's the nostalgia bug hitting me here. This is a solid hub world. It's not too spacious like later hub worlds or too small. It hits that right blend of what a hub world should be. Once we land down at the ruins, Hugo explains how that tornado was no accident and that it must have been the work of KAOS. Flynn states that he's not too fond of KAOS either and is ready to team up with Hugo and the Skylanders if they plan to take down KAOS. Hugo also talks about a character we have not heard of yet named Callie, who also agreed to help us out, but we first have to pick her up. Which segues great into level 2, Perilous Pastures, because that's the main goal of level 2. So to start this level, Flynn drops us off telling us while we patrol on the ground, he will try to find her from the skies. About right after this, Eon talks to us again and explains how in some areas and certain levels, elements will be stronger, so you can switch your Skylander to get some extra power. This is a function that is in every game, which in my opinion makes it really weird that it wasn't in level 1. I just don't understand why this very important aspect of Skylanders levels was put into chapter 2. My only guess is that they wanted to make sure that it wasn't skipped over in level 1 because of how major of a function it is. Anyway, Perilous Pastures in many ways is like Shattered Islands. You have to open gates with keys, move some turtles, and there really isn't much much to do here in this level. It is extremely short. I'm not quite sure if it's shorter than Shattered Islands, but it feels like it because the level doesn't have a bunch of NPCs explaining the game details to you. Oh, and we also get introduced to Dro enemies in this level as well. At the end of the level, Flynn finds Callie, but she's been captured by evil Dros and locked behind a gate, so we have to defeat them first. Then we hop into a turret, which is also the first ever turret section of the game and the series, and destroy the locks on the gate. You know, if I was an evil Dro and captured someone, I wouldn't put a giant turret next to the gate, but that's just me. We save Callie and Flynn immediately starts flirting with her. And trust me, Flynn will do this more in the game.
Yes, I know. Must be pretty overwhelming for you to finally meet the best pilot in all of Skylands.
We get back to the ruins with Callie and see Hugo surrounded by sheep who seems scared by them. Callie tells Hugo there's nothing wrong with sheep, but Hugo confidently tells her that they are evil creatures, and this begins the long-running joke that Hugo is afraid of sheep. Flynn tells Hugo that we were able to rescue Callie, to which then she corrects him, saying that it was the Skylanders that rescued her, and after that, Flynn flirts with her again. After Flynn's done with that, Hugo informs us that while we were out trying to find Callie, he found old blueprints for the Core of Light that the ancients used. Oh yeah, side thing, the ancients are the ones that created Skylands, but that never really gets fully explained in this game. Callie questions Hugo because he told her that he created the Core of Light. Hugo then says this knee-slapping joke after.
Well, yes and no. Yes, I said that I did, but no, I really didn't.
Hugo explains that the old Core of Light was used to repel the darkness, so if we can rebuild it, we can stop chaos from ruling all of Skylands. But we first need to find the eternal element sources that were used to make the core. Which, if you think about it, it doesn't really make that much sense. Like, chaos was already able to destroy the Core of Light when it was at its full power, so why would making it again really stop him? In order to find the parts of the core, we need to use the far viewer, which is just a giant telescope. But the area that the telescope is in has been overgrown by plants, so we have to clear that out first. Once we're able to do that, Hugo looks through the telescope and finds the first eternal source, the LAIR eternal source, and it is at the level of the Stormy Stronghold, which is protected by Dros. However, we cannot reach the stronghold yet because of the storm that surrounds it. So Callie points out that Flynn needs a bigger propeller to be able to fly through the storm, and Flynn uses this opportunity to flirt with her again. After this, Callie tells us that the Dro patrol the Skyshooter docks, and that they should have the propeller we need. So we pack up our things and go with Flynn to the docks. You know, in my humble opinion, Skyshinner's Docks is the first chapter in the game that feels like a real chapter. Both Shattered Islands and Perilous Pastures felt more like areas of the game that are meant to introduce you to game mechanics. But Skyshinner Docks is the first level that you get to use those in-game mechanics without someone telling you what to do. Unfortunately, this level sucks. Okay, that might have been harsh, but let's just say it's not my favorite level in the game. And that is mainly because of how many turret sections are in this chapter. I have never been a fan of turret sections, so one in this level is enough, but there are 3 turret sections here. After you get past the first 2 turret sections, we see the first ever Spellpunk enemy, one of the most recognizable enemies in the series. But later we get introduced to one of the final major reoccurring NPCs of the series, and possibly one of the most important. I am of course talking about Persephone, the magic fairy. Persephone's role in the Skylanders universe is to help the Skylanders upgrade their powers. If you give her the amount of gold she requests, she will help you unlock an upgrade. She talks to us for a second, then says she'll meet us back at the ruins. After fighting off some more Dro, we go through one more turret section to destroy the airship that has the propeller that we need. And now that I think about it, the Skylanders raided the Dro's base with the intent to steal a propeller. Like, I know Dros do attack Skylanders, but they didn't attack us here. We literally just raided their base and stole stuff. Skylanders fan theory. The Skylanders are actually evil. Okay, we have officially finished the first 3 levels of the game. That's 13% of the game if you don't include DLC levels. If you do include them, that's 11% of the game. So pretty much we are about 1/10 of the way done. Congratulations everyone, we're almost there. But now that we finally discovered pretty much all the main NPCs of the game, I want to take a little break and talk about them a little bit more. I guess you can consider this the first intermission of the video. So let's get right into it. Alright, now that we have got to Persephone, taken her back to the ruins, I think it is an important time to take a break and kind of talk about these characters a little bit more. In this segment, I'll be going over what I think most people consider the 5 main characters / NPCs that we find in Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. More characters and NPCs will come along the way and join us on our adventure, but in my opinion, these 5 are the most integral to the game. I won't be talking about Glumshanks or KAOS here because I think we're going to talk about them in their own right a little bit more because we get to see them through a lot of the cutscenes, and they aren't really NPCs that we see. We don't ever talk to them actually in the game. besides the very end when we talk to KAOS. But they're not that important to the overall experience, I think, like these characters are. And the way we're going to talk about these are in order of importance to the game, in my opinion. So this might be a shock to some, but in my humble opinion, the most important character or NPC throughout the game is actually Hugo. So I'm going to put him right here. I think the reason why people kind of be shocked, some people will kind of be shocked by this, is because Hugo is the only character out of the ones that I'm going to talk about that is only in 2 games, or really is only an important factor in 2 games. He's only an important factor in Spyro's Adventure and Superchargers. Other than that, he's not really there. Hugo, for the most part, is kind of like the guide in Spyro's Adventure. He's with you the entire game. Characters like Flynn and Callie, they'll kind of pop in and out in the beginning of the game, later in the game. Hugo's pretty much always there. Before you go to every level, I'm pretty sure you talk to Hugo at some point. Either he'll tell you, hey, you need to do this at this level, or he'll be like, yeah, this person's right, we need to go do this. Or he'll, I don't know, make a joke or something, talk about how he doesn't like sheep. He's pretty important. I kind of glossed over it, but yeah, he's afraid of sheep. That's kind of like his character quirk. He is afraid of sheep for pretty much no reason. And in the Skylanders Academy TV show, it's explored more. Hugo's awesome. I love Hugo. It is such a travesty, in my opinion, that he wasn't an important character in all 6 games, because he's a funny character. He'll have like these weird moments every now and again where he just says something like super out of left field. The biggest one I can think of is near the end of the game. One of the characters says they found like the location of KAOS, and he's like, "I could kiss you right now," which is like just so random. But he has moments like that. I remember he also has a moment with Gurglefin where he like makes fun of him or something for being a gilman. It was something like that. Hugo has a big mouth. He's not afraid to use it. We have another character that has an even bigger mouth that we'll get to later. But yeah, Hugo is awesome. I like his design. He's like, I probably should look this up. I'm not sure if Hugo's supposed to be a Mabu or not, because he isn't what a Mabu traditionally looks like. He's like kind of short and fat and has a vest on him with some books. He's a nerd. He's a bit of a nerd. He's also Eon's like right-hand man. He kind of does all this stuff for Eon because Eon can't really help you because he's a head. He can't really do anything. He's a spirit. So he kind of does everything that Eon wants you to do. And at the end of the game, he's the one that sends the bad guy away. So, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, in my opinion, Hugo, most important character that we find in this game. So let's get to the second most important character, which I believe it's pretty close actually for the rest of these. I think Hugo, like far and away, is the most important NPC, but I think second place, I'm gonna give it to Flynn. So that actually kind of shocked me a little bit when I replayed Spyro's Adventure, because I thought Flynn was like a way bigger factor than he actually was. Flynn really is only that important in like the first 5 chapters of the game. Like when you start the game, he's there at the first chapter, then you go save Callie with him, you go to Skyshinder's dock with him to get the what's it called, the engine that he needs or something like that. Then you go to get the Eternal Air Source with him, and after that he pretty much isn't there. He's in the ruins. You'll see him in like, you know, when they're talking and stuff like that. You can fly around the ruins with him. That's something cool actually. I don't know if you can do that throughout the entire game. If I remember correctly, you can't, but you might be able to. So I'm not saying you can't. You can fly around the ruins. You can get in this hot air balloon and like just like go around in the circle. So that's pretty cool. He actually has something to do. But he isn't that important. I was like kind of shocked because I like vividly remember him being pretty important. But after you get down to the air levels, he isn't really there in the water levels. He isn't there in the undead, the life levels, the tech ones. Like again, he's there in the ruins, always talking, you know, saying boom, talking about how he's awesome. He isn't that important though, actually, in the game, which is shocking because he probably is the most recognizable NPC, especially because he is voiced by Patrick Warburton. I don't know if I say that last name right. I always feel like I'm saying that wrong. He's voiced by Joe Swanson, you know, from Family Guy, which is really distracting sometimes. And I think it's honestly kind of cool that they did get this like pretty recognizable voice, because I don't know about you, but in my humble opinion, Patrick Warburton, almost like all his like character voices sound pretty similar. Like Gronk and Joe sound pretty similar, which I think is kind of funny. So it's just funny that they have this character with such a recognizable voice in the game. Anyway, more about Flynn. He's the he calls himself the best pilot in Skylanders, which is true, but I don't know like if anyone's fighting with him for that title because you don't really ever meet any other pilots. But he is the best pilot in Skylanders. He is very full of himself. He likes to talk about how he saved Skylanders. Now I don't know if this comes out of a place of where he actually just really thinks all this stuff about himself, or if he's projecting it because he's actually very insecure. But yeah, he does talk about how he saved Skylanders at the very end of the game. He's like, now Skylanders can finally thank me. But he's very full of himself, and he obviously has a thing for Callie, which we'll get into a bit later. He's flirting with her a lot in the game. So he's a fun little character. You know, I do enjoy me some Flynn, if I do say so myself. Alrighty, next up, I'm actually gonna go with Persephone is the next most important. Let's put her here. So obviously this is the most recent one that we found in Skyshiner Docs. And you could argue she's actually the most important because she gives you upgrades. So there's that. The reason though why I didn't put her above the other ones is because besides giving you upgrades, she is rarely ever seen. I think you see her at the end of the game when all the NPCs are there, and you always see her in Skyshiner Docs. But other than that, you never see her. She's literally only there to give you upgrades. But that's a pretty important thing. Now, when I replayed Spyro's Adventure, all my characters were already level 10, which is the max level for some reason, Spyro's Adventure, and fully leveled up. So I don't really need to see her. I never saw her. She's very important though. You know, obviously you need to get upgrades. It's an integral part of the game, getting gold and buying upgrades, and the only way you do that is through Persephone, except if you're playing Imaginators. But really, we don't know that much about Persephone unless you like dive deep into her, like, I don't know, Skylanders fandom page, because you rarely talk to her. When you do talk to her, she doesn't have really any dialogue, because she's just like, do you want another magical upgrade? And then you're like, yes, and you buy an upgrade, boom, and conversation over. She's a fairy though. She wears pretty revealing. She wears pretty revealing clothing for a kids game, I guess you could say. She has a giant like crystal on her forehead. She's probably the most like non-complex character in the game, besides maybe KAOS, because KAOS is kind of like, oh, I'm evil. But like Persephone is just like, hey, you want an upgrade? Other than that, she's not that important. But the reason why she's third, in my opinion, is because the one function that she does do is super important. So the only way you get upgrades is through her. So yeah, that gets her at third place. All right, fourth place. I'm actually gonna go with Callie. So, and I think she has actually a very interesting story. So I feel like they almost just introduced Callie just so Flynn could have someone to flirt with, because that's what it feels like. Because for the most part, Callie is very bland, is very unimportant. She does have one big feature, which I'll get to in a second. But I feel like that they all probably like the one feature that she does literally anyone could do, which I guess I'll talk about now. It's heroic challenges, which is just the characters. Each character has a different challenge, and if you complete the challenges, they get like multipliers and stuff like that. But like literally anyone could do that. Hugo could have been the one giving people heroic challenges, but they just decided to give it to Callie. And I think that's because they actually wanted the character to serve some sort of purpose instead of the character that Flynn just like talks to all the time and talks about how, hey, we haven't gone on a date yet or whatever. I wasn't even trying to do a Flynn impression. I don't know what that was. It's a little, what's it called, Skylanders fan theory of mine, that the only reason they made Callie was so Flynn could have someone to flirt with, and they later introduced someone else to do that job in a later game, which we'll get to when we talk about that game. So Callie, like I said, is very bland, but I think that is almost like her intended purpose to be bland. I think she's almost like the straight man of Skylanders NPCs. And if you don't know what that means, a straight man is basically, it's usually in sitcoms, there's like all these wacky characters and stuff, and the straight man is a person that's kind of just like a normal person that is reacting to these weird characters. I think the best example I can think of right now is Jim from The Office. You know, like you have all these other people doing these weird stuff, and Jim just kind of looking at the camera, and like he's like this regular guy. You know, he's above all this. I don't know if he thinks that, but it's kind of like just a person that is the most normal that you can kind of relate to. I think that is kind of Callie. I think she's meant to be just kind of like this person that obviously wants the best for Skylands, but she's also not really a wacky character. Like whenever Flynn talks to her, she always like shuts him down and puts him in his place. And I think that's kind of the purpose. She's just supposed to be a regular character, and that's a bit refreshing, I guess you could say, because there's so many weird characters in this game. And I think that's kind of the intended purpose for Callie. Like I said, she gives the characters heroic challenges, but again, literally anyone could do that, and you wouldn't have to change that much. But she does serve a purpose, and it's a decent purpose. It's some post-game content you can do after the game, after you finish the game, or you can do it during the game. After you finish the game, you can do these heroic challenges, and they give your Skylanders multipliers and stuff like that. So Callie, good character, good solid character. It may be surprising. Okay, now that's over. Surprisingly, last place, I'm actually going to go with Eon. Now, one could argue he's an actual NPC, because he's not an NPC. You don't really talk to him in the ruins at all. That is why he's going in last place. Now, he's still very important to the game as a whole. He's kind of the narrator through through a lot of the cutscenes. Basically, whenever you get a new part of the core light, Eon's kind of nice, like, congratulations, or good job, Portal Master, you've done this, you're so awesome. So he's a bit of a glazer, but that is to be expected. He is very important in the fact that he introduces you to Skylands. He's kind of, as Hugo's your guide, but the very beginning of the game, Eon is the guide, because he tells you what Skylands is, and then he tells you to put on the Skylander on the portal, and then in the second chapter he tells you about elemental zones. So the very beginning of the game, he is the guide. But once you kind of get the gist of how the game works, he isn't there. He only shows up in cutscenes and at the very end of the game. And I don't want to talk about the very end of the game because we're like barely in the game itself. Besides games that he is not in, I think he actually has the least impact in Skylanders Spyro's adventure. Because like I said, he's only in cutscenes. He isn't in an NPC that you can actually talk to in the ruins. And in other games, he is a character you can talk to in the hub worlds. I do think it was meant to be like this though, as at the very beginning of the game, obviously Eon gets turned into a spirit, so you can't really talk to him. And I think that's kind of like the thing. It's like, hey, this guy is supposed to be the big important guy, but he isn't here anymore, so we need you. So I think that's kind of its intended purpose, that he isn't really there that much because he's only a floating head in the sky. Obviously, at the very beginning of the game, he has a body. KAOS uses his Hydra and kills him, I guess, because he's a spirit now, so I guess he's dead. But he can't do anything. But that's the thing with Eon, he can't do anything. He is a floating head in the sky, he's a spirit. He can't physically do anything. It actually must be a pretty painful existence for Eon, because he's just a floating head in the sky. He can't touch things. He just is kind of there. It's interesting, honestly, that you don't ever see him in the ruins, because like, what else does he have to do? He literally just floats around. Why can't you see him in the ruins? What else is he doing? Is he just like kind of exploring Skylands because he can't get hurt now because he's a head that just floats? Like, I really don't know. Eon does get a lot more development, especially in the 5th game in this series, but I think just in general as the games go on. Also, I don't think I talked about this, but I forget which cutscene it is. In one of the cutscenes, Eon just looks wrong. He looks like made out of metal for some reason. I don't know why this is. I'll put a picture of it here right now. If someone can answer that for me, because I don't know where to look that up. He just looks like in every other cutscene, he looks like this. He looks like this. He looks like a regular good old floating head. But in one of the cutscenes, he looks like he's like a robot or something. I have no idea what happened there. Anyway, we might as well talk about some of these character dynamics now that we have the chance to. So Hugo really likes Eon. He thinks like Eon is the best of all time. That's it. Callie, I don't think has really any connection to Eon at all. She might mention him passing once in the game. I don't remember it. Same thing with Flynn. He doesn't really talk to Eon at all. The only character, surprisingly, that actually like really has a good relationship with Eon, that like talks about him highly and stuff like that, is Hugo. Which is crazy, because like he's supposed to be the most important Portal Master of all time. He was the last Portal Master. I forgot to mention that. Eon was the last Portal Master at the time when the Core of Light got destroyed. So you think these other characters are talking about him at all. But no, only Hugo does, and also Persephone doesn't. None of these characters really talk about Persephone. Flynn does. I think he calls her strange at one point in the game. And also, before you go on a mission, he's like, talk to Persephone. So if you try to go up to him before I think the level after Sky Shino docks, he'll just be like, go talk to Persephone, go talk to Persephone, go talk to Persephone. So he mentioned it there. I don't think really anyone else talks about Persephone though. There is like dialogues that characters can say throughout the entire like Ruins experience in between chapters and stuff like that. I didn't like personally like look at those, but from what I've seen, no one talks about Persephone or Eon either. He doesn't talk about her either. Like she's like all the way over here. No, like that, like no one talks about it for some reason. Obviously, the biggest, I guess, not relationship, but like dynamics between two characters is probably Flynn and Callie. Flynn obviously likes Callie in some sort of way, but I think it's pretty superficial. I don't think he really likes her like as a person. I just think he thinks she's probably cute or whatever. So, because obviously when he sees Callie, he's like, oh, hey, I helped save you. Like, we have to go on a date now, pretty much. So, it's, like I said, it's pretty superficial. But obviously, Flynn has something for Callie. It's not really reciprocated by Callie, except at the very end of the game, she does say something towards Flynn that makes him be like, oh, cool. We'll get there later. Cause, like, I don't know if I should mention it now because it's at the very end of the game. But basically, Callie does, in some sort of way, say that Flynn isn't the worst at the end of the game. Like I said, Callie is pretty much the straight man of the NPCs. So whenever Flynn makes any towards an advance towards her, she shuts him down. Throughout parts of the game, she seems very annoyed by Flynn, which I get. So yeah, that's kind of what they got going on. Interestingly enough, Hugo and Callie, they do talk to each other, but I think it's only out of necessity. Like I just could not see Hugo and Callie like just being friends outside of the game. Like at least in this game and other games in the series, especially Superchargers, where all the characters get like crazy development, I can see it. But just in SSA by itself, you never really get the feeling that like Callie and Hugo really like had any sort of actual like friendship, it feels like. Which I feel like honestly that's what it's like with all these characters. Most of these characters, I don't like, they don't like each other. Like I can't see Flynn and Hugo really getting along, or Hugo and Callie. Obviously Eon and Hugo got their thing. I don't think any of them like Persephone. Like most of them I think don't really like each other that much. Besides, I don't think Hugo hates Callie. I think they get along just fine. I just don't think they like are friends really in this game. Anyway, that leaves us with Flynn and Hugo. Hugo obviously seems very annoyed by Flynn throughout most of the game, but like I already mentioned, Flynn isn't really that important outside of the first 4 chapters. So after you get done with that, Hugo and Flynn don't really talk to each other that much, and Hugo just talks like all the other NPCs you find throughout the game. I imagine that Hugo and Flynn probably get along okay after the game. You know, after like Skylanders Series, I think Hugo kind of realizes that no, Flynn did do his job and he's appreciative of that, but he does probably still think Flynn is pretty annoying because of just how much he talks about himself. And then like I said, Eon pretty much doesn't talk to these characters like at all besides Hugo. I don't think he ever really talks to Callie. He doesn't really ever talk to Flynn. He doesn't really ever talk to Persephone. Like him and Hugo are the only ones that really like have a good relationship. So it is kind of weird, honestly, that in this game, the 5 most important characters, there's really only like one actually strong, solid relationship, which is Hugo and Eon. All the other ones are either superficial, like how Flynn thinks towards Callie, it's obviously not reciprocated, or they just don't like each other at all, or they just don't talk to each other. Like again, like I said, it feels like the only reason why these characters would ever like talk to each other is the context of the game, is the context that, hey, we all like need to help save Skylands. Obviously, like Hugo and Flynn know each other somewhat because they are together at the very beginning of the game. So they have probably some sort of like working relationship together. But I just can't imagine that they would like, I don't know, get a drink together or something, or whatever the Skylanders equivalent of that is. And then who even cares? Because Hugo gets thrown by the wayside in Skylanders Giants anyway, and we're only left with 4. So yeah. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else about these characters that I should have talked about that I haven't mentioned already? Honestly, no. These characters have very little depth to them, like super low depth. I think this is the game, honestly, that the characters have the least depth in out of any of the games. And that might be controversial because Imagineers has pretty bad story, but I think those characters still have way more depth than here. Because this game is like baby's first game almost, because you can't, at least in the version I play, I know the Wii version you can, I think. You can't skip dialogue. You can skip cutscenes though, but you can't skip dialogue. They like want to make sure you hear everything these characters say. And despite that, like you don't know anything about these guys besides the fact that Eon's a spirit, Hugo is kind of like an Eon Glazer, and he really likes Eon. That Flynn is the best pilot in Skylands. That like all these like very base level stuff. But I think that's kind of how they wanted it to be, because like it's just a game for like 7-year-olds. So why am I even going into that much depth? I don't know. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this intermission. But how about we get back to the real task at hand? Alright, now that we are done dissecting all the major NPCs of the game, we can continue to the 4th chapter, Stormy Stronghold, and the 1st chapter with an eternal source that we need to grab, so that we can start rebuilding the Core of Light. When we enter the level, we see a giant tornado ripping apart a castle to shreds. The Drows have found the eternal air source and are trying to harness its power, but it's not quite working. Flynn suggests that we have to find a way to fix a bridge that is connected to the castle so we can make our way to the air source. The way we do this in the level is by lowering lightning pylons, which just somehow fix parts of the castle. I don't know really how it works, so let's just say it's magic, which honestly is like a reasonable thing to say within the world of Skylands. Something kind of peculiar about this chapter is that it's pretty much just a giant circle before you get to the castle. You just make a big circle around the castle while lowering the lightning pylons until the entire castle is fixed. And you know what? Even when you get to the castle, it's all just circles, as you have to go up the castle ramps in circles. When you do eventually finally get your way to the top, you have to defeat a couple waves of enemies, and after that you do obtain the eternal air source. Once the level ends, we get jump scared by a poorly rendered Eon, and he tells us good job and that the magic air source has brought him back. Now that we have gotten the first piece of the core, you can see in real time what the magic of the eternal air source does to the Core of Light as it starts rebuilding itself. Right after this, another cutscene plays, and KAOS, by looking into his giant portal in his base, finds out that the Skylanders have found the eternal air source, and that Eon is back somehow. Glumshanks tells KAOS that there is probably another portal master and they are helping the Skylanders fix the core. After hearing this, KAOS screams and falls over and demands Glumshanks to find other eternal sources. We make our way back to the ruins again, and when we do, Hugo asks us to investigate the docks of the ruins, because there's been some ruckus coming from over there. When we go down to the docks, we find an NPC named Gurglefin, and he is trapped behind some bars. To get him out, we must do a lock puzzle, and these lock puzzles will become a staple of the series. You have to move around a green imp, and he has to touch certain parts of the puzzle for you to complete it. Once we free Gurglefin, he informs us that he came looking for us before getting trapped, because some trolls have invaded his home island and have enslaved the rest of his kind. We agree to help him out, and then a giant pirate ship just comes out of nowhere, and I don't remember if this is ever explained, but they do not explain it here. I guess we just assume it's Gurglefin's, and he takes us to the 5th chapter of the game, Oil Spill Islands. When we get to the Oil Spill Islands, it's a mucky, green, polluted landscape with oil rigs and pipelines seen throughout the chapter. This is Gurglefin's home, and he tells us this place used to be beautiful before the trolls came and started drilling for oil, which they gave to KAOS for his machines. And even worse, like you already mentioned, they have captured his people. And at the end of this dialogue, he says that we need to hurry because he can already smell the cooking fires and tartar sauce, implying that the trolls will eat the Gillman. And for some reason, when I was a kid, I genuinely thought that you had to finish this level in a certain amount of time or the trolls would eat the Gillman, even though there was never a timer for this level. I don't know why I mentioned this, but it feels important, so there you go. As the level begins, we quickly encounter the first troll enemies of the game, an iconic foe that will go on to become a staple of the Skylanders series. Immediately after defeating them, we have to complete a light puzzle, introducing another reoccurring feature of the franchise. These early moments of the level establish some more key gameplay elements. As you go through the level, you complete some more puzzles and free the Gillman. Something cool about this chapter is you can see what Gurglefin was talking about in the beginning of it. There are areas that are beaches, and there are some palm trees, and there's water all around the level. They could have easily, in my opinion, just made this a big industrial drilling rig and called it a day for this level, but they wanted to show you what this area of the world used to look like. Going back to the level though, I kind of forgot how many light puzzles you have to complete in this one. This level is pretty much just a whole level dedicated to showing the player how these puzzles work. After freeing all but one Gillman, to get the last one, we first have to defeat the Mark 31 Troll Tank, which is like a pseudo boss fight, but it's very easy to defeat, and we can finally free all the Gilman. But we are not done quite yet. We also need to destroy the oil factory in the level. So Gurglefin tells us to grab a bomb that's just lying around for some reason and throw it into a smoke belcher to finally make this island safe again. We do just that, and we walk away slowly as there's a giant explosion behind us. Oh yeah, baby, that's super cool. So I actually really like this level a lot. It's not only one of my favorite levels in this game, but in any of the games. Now, as a part of that nostalgia, probably, but I still think it is a very great level to play through. This is actually one of the first places, like, when someone brings up Skylanders that I think of. I don't know why. It's just always, like, felt like, I don't know if this makes sense, like such a Skylanders level. You know, I can't point out the exact reason, but I'm going to try. I've already touched on it, but there are some very iconic things about Skylanders that are in this level. One of those are the troll enemies. Those are very iconic. Those get introduced here. Light puzzles get introduced here, which is another mainstay of the game series. Another reason why I think it's pretty memorable is that it is such a stark contrast to the other 4 levels that we played before this. The other 4 levels are all sky related, and this one's a water level, but that's not the main reason why it feels so different. The first 4 levels are all very beautiful looking places. They're all nice looking places. You know, they have beautiful skyboxes and this, that, and the other. And Oil Spill Island is anything but that. It is a polluted wasteland. It is dark, it's green, it's murky. It does not feel like any of the levels you've played before. But I think that's good because it actually makes the world of Skylands feel so much bigger. You know, before this, Skylands was like Skylands. You know, it was literally just felt like a bunch of islands in the sky. But here you see there are other areas that are nothing like that at all. You know, you don't really see that much sky in this level. It's mainly just water, and it's very, like I said, murky and dark looking, and it just makes the world feel bigger and more expansive. And it's funny because in about 2 chapters from now, we're going to get pretty much the exact opposite of what Oil Spill Islands is. But let's not jump ahead. Let's get back to the story right where we were. When we get back to the hub world, Hugo starts ranting about how the far viewer won't turn because it's rusty. But never fear because Gurglefin is here, and as a thanks to us, he made us an oil donkey. Now, talk about convenient. So we use the oil to oil up the far viewer so Hugo can use it properly again. Hugo then says he can see the eternal water source. But according to the blueprints of the core, the water source is no good unless we have something called the twin spouts of Osha Major Minor. Luckily for us though, Hugo can see where that is also with the far viewer, and it's at the Dark Water Cove. Gurglefin pops up and says that it's a very dangerous place, but he will start preparing the ship. Hugo then says, as much as I hate to say it, you should go with Gurglefin. Hugo, what do you mean as much as you hate it? Gurglefin is literally the only reason you can use the far viewer right now. Ungrateful furball if you ask me. We reach Darkwater Cove and the main gate of the area is closed, so we have to land on a dock on the outer island of the area. Once we get off the ship with Gurglefin, the Cove's artillery spots us and destroys our ship with cannonballs. So now the only way out is to run and gun our way through the Darkwater Cove. This level's theme is pirates and they let you know it. You get things like the Blastoneers or the squid-faced brutes, and you also get introduced to another type of spellpunk here, this time being the water one. After exploring the cove and getting through waves of enemies, we make it to the ancient temple where the twin spouts lie. But in order to get it, we first have to defeat all the enemies that are here, and it's about as hard as you would expect for the 6th level of a game. But even though we have what we came for, our ship got destroyed, so we have to seize one of the pirate ships here. But once we do, Gurglefin remembers that the main gate of the cove was closed, and we need to open it. And to do this, we need to find the gate switch. So we make our way over there by getting past some enemies, then open the gate, and finally, we can get back to the ruins and add the spout to the core of light. Once level ends, we get a cutscene showing us the effects of adding the twin spouts to the core. After that, Hugo tells us that the eternal water source is located on a string of islands, but can only be summoned by finding 4 ancient statues, and to be careful because the source is guarded by a giant leviathan that can eat whole villages. But we're the Skylanders, so who cares? So we leave in Gurglefin's ship that just got destroyed on the last level, but who cares about continuity? So if you remember a little while ago, I said that a water level later is pretty much the exact opposite of Oil Spill Islands. Well, this is the level I was talking about, Leviathan Lagoon. Leviathan Lagoon has green grass, blue water, and sandy beaches. When we start the level, Gurglefin shows us the area that we need to present the 4 statues for the water source to appear. And after this, we get introduced to probably my least favorite enemy of the game, the Habanero, which literally just exists to be annoying. That is its only purpose. They are very fast and pick up the statues you need. If you have a ranged Skylander, then they aren't that bad to get past, but God forbid you have a melee Skylander, you have to work to defeat these guys. The first Hob isn't actually too bad to defeat because the area where you encounter encounter it isn't that big. And after that, we had the first of our 4 ancient statues. After moving around some more giant turtles, we get to the second habanero. But it doesn't have a statue, but it has the key to get to a statue. You meet it in an area with 3 bridges, so in order to catch this one, you have to move turtles around so you can corner it and defeat it. But I was actually fast enough to defeat it without moving the turtle, so lucky me. You get the key, and the statue is waiting for you in the next section of the level. After taking down some more powered enemies, you find the third hop, and it's pretty much set up just like the last one. There are 3 bridges, and you have to move turtles to corner it and obtain the third statue. But while I was using Stealth Elf Stash ability, the hop spawned right in front of me, and I killed it accidentally. So again, lucky me, I guess, because it didn't even have time to grab the statue, its only intended purpose. Following this, Gurglefin waves us over to a building, and we have to do a turret section. In this section, you have to shoot down a pirate ship that has the 4th and final statue, and now we can place down all 4 statues to get the eternal water source. Look at there. It's so pretty. And you get eaten by a giant leviathan. But once we get down into the belly of the beast, KAOS appears and tells us that we are too late and that we are never going to get out of this place alive, and he starts the first boss fight of the game. KAOS spawns an evil version of the Skylanders app, and get used to evil versions of Skylanders, by the way, because we're going to see a lot of them. We're able to defeat Zap, so after that KAOS uses his water spell, which spawns sharks. If a shark touches you, then it does damage to you, but something interesting is if you get close enough to them without it touching you, it will actually give you health. But I suck at that, so I just try to stay away from the sharks. Once this part is over, KAOS spawns an evil version of the Skylander Gilgrunt, which again is not very hard to defeat. And after you defeat him, KAOS brings back the sharks. KAOS spawns one more evil Skylander after the second wave of sharks, which is evil Slam Bam, and it's just as easy as the other ones. But then KAOS says enough is enough and spawns all 3 evil minions at once. And this actually isn't really that hard to defeat them all because they drop food when you defeat them, and they also have less health when all 3 are spawned together. With KAOS out of options, he concedes, and we finally have the eternal water source. After this, a cutscene plays showing us the water source going into the core of light. Slowly, it is being rebuilt back to what it used to be. But then we get a KAOS cutscene, and we see KAOS laughing, and Glumshanks asks him why is he laughing, because they just lost an eternal element source. KAOS tells Glumshanks that even though the Skylanders have the water source, the darkness is still spreading. KAOS then chokes on a chicken leg right after, which pretty much sums him up for this game. So we have completed 6 chapters and have 2 elemental sources. But now that we have gotten a decent chunk of the game done and have familiarized ourselves with the game enough, I think it's time to take yet again another break and talk about the roster of this game. Sorry if I look sweaty or if I'm like breathing heavily, because I'll show you even. Look at the setup for all this. And this is all like in a room that doesn't have the best AC. So sorry again, but let's get into the roster. So basically, this was a segment I did in my Superchargers video. The poster's right there, and I just talked about every single Skylander. It's a intermission segment. I forgot what levels these are in between. I think this is either right before or at the midway of the levels. I kind of forgot, but let's just say that's what it is for now, because I forgot. But let's do it. Let's talk about them. So I think I'd be remiss, and I just realized that this the 3DS poster. This isn't the normal poster. You can tell it's not like big like the other ones. I was like looking at OfferUp or something. I forgot which one it was, and I think I might have gotten scammed. I think the picture showed the real poster. So let's start off with Spyro first. Obviously, the main guy, the main selling point of Skylanders originally, at least, because the game is named after him. He's okay. He's okay. He's actually pretty. I can't believe this after I've seen he's okay. He's actually pretty good. In Spyro's Adventure, at least, when you can max upgrade them, but that's just because the game isn't that hard. It's the only game that has no difficulty setting. My arm is getting tired because I have to hold this thing pretty much. It's the only game with no difficulty setting, which makes it probably the easiest game, except for maybe Magic, because all the characters are just so overpowered in that game. But when it comes to Spyro, I'm trying to... yeah, he's okay. I would say it's very faithful to what he originally was, which is just a dragon that flies around. What I do hate, I don't want to say hate's a strong word, but having, and all the dragon Skylanders up from this, they have their third ability, their tertiary ability is flying, and that really sucks because it pretty much takes away from one of their abilities to deal damage. It's like when you were a kid and you played Pokemon games, and when it evolved or when it leveled up and it gave you a new ability and it wasn't dealing damage, that ability didn't deal damage, it like healed, so you're like, no, I don't want it. At least that's what I did. I don't know about y'all. That's kind of what sucks about him, because One of his abilities just doesn't do any damage. It's in Spyro's Adventure, it's a little bit more useful because you can fly over water, I think, with them. Water Skylanders can swim in water, and I think the characters that can fly can swim over water. That's it, though. His other abilities are his Fireball ability and his Rush ability. Those are both okay. He's a decent Skylander, not my favorite. Probably the upper tier of characters in this game. Like, he's probably a little bit higher than the middle, but yeah, that's Spyro. Okay, next, because that really sucked trying to hold the camera. Maybe I'll do it again. But next, you can't really see him. I'm sorry. This is a lot worse than I thought it'd be. Next is Double Trouble. Double Trouble was actually one of my favorite ones growing up, and I think it's because he was one of the only ones I had when the first couple months came. But Double Trouble, he's not bad. He's not bad by any means. He's not. He's. Do I think he's better than Spyro? I don't know. Double Trouble is like a weird Skylander. He's one of those like Skylanders that can summon his like own minions, which I don't remember off the top of my head how many Skylanders can do that. It's not a lot, obviously. So that's cool. His main ability is fine. It's nothing crazy in my opinion. Just the beam, the zap electricity. That's a Clash of Clans reference. And then you can also, how can you forget his soul gem, which gets changed in later games. How he can like fly over water or something like that, and it changes in Swap Force because they no longer do the thing where like characters can swim in water. So Soul Gem's basically useless, but he's all right. He's cool, decent Skylander. Okay, we're going back to this. Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball is the first Skylander I ever bought that wasn't part of the starter pack Skylanders. So that he has that distinction, and I think he's one of the worst Skylanders in the game. So there was no nostalgic bias to him. I know there's a lot of Wrecking Ball fans out there. If the thing's like shaking, it's because I move a lot. I have ADHD, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, Double Trouble, he's one of the worst Skylanders in my opinion in this game. I don't think he's that good. His main ability has it's cool, I guess. He sticks his tongue out, whatever. He can burp on people, and then his rolly ability. He's okay. It's not the best. He can, like I said, he can roll. It's a cool gimmicky character if that's what you're into. I'm not really into that, so I think he's actually one of the worst characters in the game. But then after that, we get to one of the best characters in the game, Voodoo. He might be my favorite. It's between a couple other Skylanders, but I really do think that he is one of the best characters in the game. Where can you go wrong with him? His main ability does so much damage. Him just swinging his magic axe around. His combos are amazing. He can set up like traps, so he'll like put one thing right down here, put one thing down right here, and it makes like a beam, and it shocks enemies. How can you not love Voodoo? One of the best Skylanders in the game. It is criminal that Wrecking Ball got a Series 2 over Voodoo. He is so much better than Wrecking Ball. He's better than most of the characters here. Like I said, he's maybe my favorite from this game, and that gets rid of all the magic. So we have 7 elements left. So let's go to Whirlwind. Not a game changer. She is one of those Skylanders that has an ability where she flies, which pretty much wastes her ability, but she can heal, and that's really good. Obviously healing is so important, but in Spyro's Adventure, it's actually not that much important because the game, like I said, is very easy. Her soul gem is cool, the black hole thing, gimmicky. I like it. Another very gimmicky character. Her main, just the rainbow and then the Tempest Cloud, shoots out the cloud. It's cool, but she's not one of my favorite. Next up, Tornado. He actually might be the worst character in the game. It's a foot race, really, between him and Wrecking Ball. He is not that good at all. His main ability is just he spins around a tornado. Who cares? And then you can also shoot shells out of the tornado. Again, who really cares that much? It feels like you have to do any Skylander you can be good with, but it feels like you just have to do so much out of your way for him to be a good Skylander. He's not one of my favorite. Sonic Boom. She's like almost like just a better version of Whirlwind because I'm pretty sure Whirlwind can only heal allies. She can't heal herself. And even though I actually just said that not a lot of Skylanders can summon minions, she summons her children. Like her children are her minions and they can die, get defeated, which is kind of pretty dark. Obviously, Sonic Boom is her name, so she can make a Sonic Boom like her screech. That's her main ability. I actually like her a decent amount. She's probably upper mid tier when it comes to SSA characters. So shout out to her, I guess. Now we can talk about my boy Lightning Rod. I like him a lot. I actually have to kind of slouch down for this because the camera angle is a lot shorter than me. Lightning Rod. Where can you go wrong with Lightning Rod? You know, you got his... Well, one of his attacks is actually very bad. His primary where he just shoots lightning like Zeus. Obviously, he's based off Zeus. That's pretty cool. And then when you unlock it later, I forget if it's a path or if it actual unlock. I think it's a path. Where like you go... I remember... In my original one in Superchargers, I was just making like a lot of noises, a lot of just like bam, boom, boom, boom. I'm pretty sure when I was talking about characters, but like I really don't know how to explain it. One of his abilities, like he goes up, and then like a like big 3D model of him like goes up in the sky and shoots down lightning. That's pretty cool. And then his other ability, like he just goes like this and like lightning comes out. That's what I'm talking about. That isn't that good. He's definitely the upper echelon when it comes to SSA characters. I really like him. He's pretty awesome. So that's what I think about him. Next up is Hex, and I feel like you either love her or you either hate her because I've seen so many like people that are adamant that Hex is a great Skylander. She's just okay in my opinion. She shoots out a skull, and then obviously she can make a bone wall come up to protect her. That's whatever. And then she has I'm doing it again. She just goes like and just like that, and it shoots out the skulls and they rain down. That's fine, but it just takes so long. It's one of those attacks in SSA where like there's a meter to it and you have to reach the meter and then it finally happens. But Hex, she's just okay. Next up, what do we have? We have Cinder. I actually like Cinder. Her main is pretty good, where she just shoots out lightning. Obviously, that's really cool. If you go down one of her paths, when you defeat an enemy, you can turn into a ghost, and if you go through it, that gives you health. So it's actually a really good ability. The ability I'm talking about, you become like a shadow or something, and so yeah, actually probably one of my more favorited Skylanders from SSA, but. Again, it doesn't say that much. Again, like I said, not a lot of negative things. My boy Chop Chop Up is next. I made like a half serious, half joke video probably 3 years ago at this point, which is crazy to say, about how Chop Chop was robbed because he wasn't put in Superchargers over... World Brawl got chosen to be in Superchargers, one of the characters brought back over Chop Chop, which I thought was crazy. Because Chop Chop had a series 2 and 3, and was probably gonna have a series 4 if Undead wasn't cut short. A series variant in Trap Team. What can you say about Chop Chop that hasn't already been said? Like with Voodoo, I feel like he's a bit under the radar, but with Chop Chop, what can you really say about Chop Chop that hasn't already been said? His main is great. He has the combo abilities. I mean, he's just an awesome Skylander. I like Skylanders that can use swords, and obviously, this is Skylander that can use a sword. So. I love him. Next up is Ghost Roaster. I have less nice things to say about Ghost Roaster. Only Skylander necessarily that can kill himself in the hub world. One of his abilities is just you going like the ectoplasm mode or something, where you can't get damage done for you from enemies, but it also does damage to you. So it's kind of like, I don't know, a double-edged sword type of thing. What do you even call that? His mace that he has attached to him. It's okay. Doesn't do that much for me. It gets upgraded later, and it's not even a mace anymore. Something I don't like that some Skylanders do is they actually, when they become upgraded, they don't look like their original selves, which kind of bugs me, but he's okay. Next up, we have Igniter. Definitely a fan favorite from this game. He has a sword. You know, I like that. But he has an ability where he's like a fire spirit, and he can like come out of his armor, and like you can like walk around for a minute and deal damage to enemies. His sword, has an ability where his sword becomes like super big, and he just destroys the ground with it. Yeah, definitely one of my more favorite Skylanders. And then we get to Sunburn. Get a good, nice, close-up view of Sunburn. There he is right there. Definitely one of my least. I remember I said it's a foot race between Wrecking Ball and Warnado, and then eventually someone else would come up. And I think I actually forgot about him because I hate him so much. Sunburn, do not like him. People say that he's good. I think it's just because people want to be different. I'm telling you right now, right here. If someone says they like Sunburn, it's because they want to be different. Sunburn, oh my goodness. At least in the Xbox version. I haven't played the Wii version in a long time because I got an Xbox 360, and I think it's a lot better than the Wii version. I don't care what people say. He sucks. He's so bad. So his main ability is that he can shoot fire out of his mouth like that, right? It comes out in like this line almost. It's a straight line, and when he turns, it is so slow. Like, the way you have to use him pretty much, at least on the Xbox version, is that you got to like use his main, stop pressing it, turn around if like there's a bunch of enemies by you. And then he has like this weird teleport ability where like portals will come up around him and you can choose one to go to. It's not that good. Really, the only ability I think is actually decent from him is he has like this kind of not, it's somewhat similar to Igniter where it's like he becomes like a fire spirit. You can just like move around, hurt enemies. Yeah. Do not like Sunburn. I could make a whole video why I think Sunburn is starting to become overrated. They love Sunburn. I have no idea why. Flameslinger's next. I used to actually not like Flameslinger that much. He was actually probably one of my least favorite. And then I actually used him. And I actually like him quite a lot now. I have a big complaint, and it's a complaint a lot of people. A lot of Skylanders are just very slow. Some weird reason, like speed and the fire element, they're like tied together. A lot of Skylanders, if I remember correctly, that have a dash ability are in the fire element. I don't know why that is. Yeah, so he has a speed ability where he can just go fast, and he actually leaves a flame like behind him, so you can make like circles and stuff, and a flame that will trap enemies, deal damage. Bow and arrow, pretty cool. Only character in SSA with a bow and arrow. Wolfgang has an Imagineers. I don't remember off the top of my head if any more Skylanders have bow and arrow. Snapshot does, and Trap Team. Besides the point, he's pretty good. You can upgrade his bow and arrow to where it does a lot more damage. I like him. Next up is Eruptor. It is actually the same story. I used to not like Eruptor that much, and then I actually used him, and he's pretty good. One of my more favorite designs from SSA is just like this like fire lava dude. So he's pretty cool. He has obviously his main abilities where he just goes like this. Fireballs come out of him. You can barf lava, which does hold you in place, which kind of sucks. But other than that, he deals a lot of damage. He's one of the main, like, if you think about characters from Skylanders, like, I think he's probably up there with Gilgrunt, maybe even above Gilgrunt. Because if you don't remember, they made a freaking float for him in the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade in like 2014. So yeah, he's very popular Skylander. Up there with Gilgrunt, Spyro, Trigger Happy. And that's happens for a reason. He's a pretty good Skylander. So now we've officially completed half of the elements. We're going on to the other half. So next up we got Camo. He can heal too. He can actually heal himself. He can heal himself. He has the watermelon. I was about to say mango for some reason. He has the watermelon ability where he can heal himself. His other ability, somewhat similar to other Skylanders. He just shoots out like, I think it's supposed to be like, I actually don't know what it's called, but he just shoots out like this ball of light from his mouth. So I looked it up. It's called a sunburst. I was about to say mini sun, and I thought that sounded so stupid, but I looked it up. It's called the sunburst, his primary ability, and then obviously his secondary is the vine cracker vines, which they just shoots out vines. He shoots out like a miniature sun, and I thought that sounded so dumb. And then I looked it up. I knew my stuff. It's called that. He's definitely upper mid tier. Stump Smash. I think Stump Smash is I'm almost 100% sure he has the most health. He has the most health out of any Skylander in SSA. I think he might actually have the most health out of any core Skylander ever, which are basically the Skylanders that aren't gimmick landers, so the regular looking Skylanders in later Skylanders games. I think he has the most health out of almost everyone. He has a lot of health. Unfortunately, he's a melee Skylander, so he kind of needs that because he can't really do that much range except for his like ability where he shoots out acorns from his mouth, which I like that one. It's a cool ability, and obviously boom, boom, boom. Classic. He's a classic Skylander. I do like him. I do enjoy him. Zook. Zook is another character, I've said this 3 times now, that I used to not like that much, and I used him. Obviously, the main ability, the bazooka. Boom, boom, boom. It's pretty cool. And then he has a similar attack to Stealth Elf, where he like shoots up mushrooms around him to protect him. Good Skylander. Solid B Skylander. Now, the character that I used to dislike the most and I like the most now, so the character that I probably changed my opinion about the most in Skylanders history is Stealth Elf. I used to not like Stealth Elf that much. There she is. And I have no idea why, because she is so freaking good in Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. She is amazing. She has a kind of a dash ability where like she just like front flips. So she's quick. Her blades do so much damage. The DPS, the damage per second, the DPS on her is insane. What I will say is that one of her abilities I don't use like almost at all. It's her ability where she like disappears and enemies can't detect her. I almost never use that ability, but her other abilities are just so good. So I can't really say that much better. If you see me looking down, it's because my computer screen's right here. But yeah, Stealth Elf, I mean, what would I do without Stealth Elf? Like, she's so good. Now on to the Water Skylanders. Water probably has the most consistently good Skylanders out of the 4 elements. Slam, Bam, Zap, Wham, Shell, Gilgron, I think are all at least good to great Skylanders. These are all good to great Skylanders. Yeah, so Slam, Bam, Yeti Skylander are pretty cool. Don't think there's any other Yeti Skylanders. He has 4 arms. He's kind of a gimmicky Skylander because he has a snowboard. I'm trying to bend down. Like, I need to get a chair because, like I said, this is not working that well for me right now. So yeah, he can punch people. He has a snowboard ability where he gets on a snowboard. That's pretty cool. And he has, yeah, so one of the better Skylanders from Spyro's Adventure. We're at Zap now. So Zap is a very interesting Skylander. He's, I think, technically a dragon, even though he's not really. So everyone, like I said, Zap's very interesting Skylander, and everyone knows the story about Zap, how he was almost not a Skylander. He was originally like Tarklops. They changed him. Don't know why. He can shoot lightning, and then he can make like blobs of water that you can electrocute. Kind of Hothead-esque, because Hothead can shoot out oil and can create fire from that. That's for another video, though, because that's in Giants. Zap, like I said, Water Element's pretty good. He's probably my least favorite one from Water, but that's a bit unfair to him because the water is pretty stacked in Spyro's Adventure. So next up, Whamshell. Whamshell's actually up there with one of my more favorite characters from this game. I love Whamshell. He's a great Skylander. Basically, if your primary is good, I'm gonna like you. If you can spam if you're a Skylander that I can just spam primary with and be good with, I'm probably gonna like you. Whamshell's one of those Skylanders that I can pretty much just spam primary with. He does have other abilities. His combos are really good. I actually do like using his combos a lot. His ability I don't really use as much, but he can like shoot out like shells from his I don't know, like a mace. You can shoot like shells from it. That's cool, I guess. So yeah. And then we have the poster boy of Skylanders almost. We have Gilgrunt, which is the only Skylander with the Series 4. So he was in 4 of the he actually is technically he's in every single game because he has a Series 1 right here, a Series 2 in Giants, a Series 3 in Swap Force, a Series 4 in Trap Team. He's in Superchargers because he gets a repose in Superchargers, and then he's a NPC partially, not one of the mains, but he is an NPC in Skylanders Imagineers. He's the only characters in 5 out of the 6 games. I'm trying to think because yeah, no one got a Series 4 in Trap Team, and he's in Superchargers. So the only characters in 5 of the games. The poster boy of Skylanders is probably Gilgrunt, which is weird considering they didn't give him the Macy's Day Parade float, but that's maybe just because he'd kind of be a hard Skylander to make a float of. Eruptor's a lot more easier to make a float of. He's still, I mean, but it's for a reason. He's a good Skylander. His primary is good. I can spam it all day. His jetpack is good. It's kind of similar to a flying, but flying, I think you can just do it for however long you want. His jetpack, you actually have to you have one amount of time. If you hold his Soldier's is pretty cool. If you just hold his primary for a long time, it just makes like this anchor, boom, and it like shoots out. A good Skylander, definitely. He's probably in my top 10 for SSA characters, not top 10 in general, but SSA characters probably my top 10. So 2 more elements left to go. We got Earth. Earth is a pretty solid element too, actually, but I think the character that's worse than it drags it down a bit, which is Bash. Bash is decent. He's okay. He's he can roll like I might swerve in that corner. Whoa. He can. How did I get from roll to swerve? I don't know. He can roll like Wrecking Ball. It's not that good. It does more damage, I think, than Wrecking Balls. And then he has the ability where he actually is like 2 of the characters have like him and Dino Ring almost have the same secondary ability. He can like make a fist come out of the ground, and Dino Ring just kind of makes like rocks come out of the ground. And he has obviously his ability where he just tail whacks, and it's okay. Not one of my favorites though. Dino Ring, I do like me some Dino Ring. His boomerangs are good. You can just spin him back and forth. Like I said, his secondary is boom. You just like make some like rock formation come out of the ground. His one of his abilities, you can actually where money and like food will get stuck in the boomerang and they'll come to you. Yeah, one of his abilities where he can like hold out his hand and he just like controls the boomerang. So that's actually pretty cool. Prison Break is a very polarizing character. I think a lot of people like him, a lot of people don't like him. I'm on the side that likes him. I think if you can like get a hold onto an enemy, his DPS, his damage per second, is pretty pretty good. The question is, can you? Because just him, his main ability, he puts his fist together and a beam comes out of them, and that isn't that good by itself, but he has other abilities where like beams will come from the sky, and if you can use the beam to like boom boom like ricochet off each other, that laser does a lot of damage. And then also his other ability where he does like a front flip or back flip, I can't remember, goes on the ground, spikes come out. It's pretty good. I do like Prison Break. If you go on the Skylanders Reddit at least once or twice a year, you'll see a stupid post about how he has teeth. Prison Break does not have teeth. Okay, what you're looking at is the back of his mouth, which is made out of rocks that look like teeth. He doesn't have teeth. Prison Break doesn't have teeth. If he did, you would see it in the game. He doesn't have teeth in the game. It's just the back of his mouth. Stop saying he has teeth. He doesn't have teeth. I know some of you think he has teeth. Or maybe it's all just like an elaborate lie. I don't know. He doesn't have teeth. Sorry to go off on that tangent at the end of his talk, but then next up we have Terrafin. I actually used to like Terrafin a lot, and I don't like him as much anymore. I think that's just because my opinion on Melee Skylanders has soured over the years. I used to like Melee Skylanders a lot more, and I think it's because my Imaginator in Imaginator's the Brawler, my Earth Brawler, which now that I'm thinking about it, has some sort of similarities to Terrafin, is really good. He's probably my best Imaginator. And I think he has an awesome design, by the way. I should have entered him in the contest back in 2016. Great looking Imaginator. But I think it's because he was a brawler and he's really freaking good. And I think that's why I used to think more highly of Melee characters. But I don't think highly of him anymore. He's still good. You can go underground. That's a really cool ability. I don't know how many Skylanders can go underground and can be free from enemies. And then his punches alone are also pretty good. He's a good Skylander. I used to think that before I got him, I used to think he had a bow on the top of his head, but it's just like this weird design he has on his head. If you look at it, you can kind of see it maybe. He has like these like orange balls on the top of his head. Like for some reason they go down his spine. Before I got him, I used to think they were like a bow tie on the top of his head or something. Which is it's pretty stupid, but yeah. Last element, tech, which is a pretty strong element too. Only one of the Skylanders probably isn't in my top. There's 32 Skylanders, so only one of the tech Skylanders I think is in the bottom 16 of my Skylanders ranking or SSA ranking, and Boomer's not one of them. Boomer is probably like he's not as good as some of my other favorite Skylanders, but I love Boomer a lot. Which is crazy because back in the day, back in 2011, I had the choice between him and Wrecking Ball, and I chose Wrecking Ball over him. And then I got Boomer like a little bit later. But yeah, Boomer's one of my favorites. His dynamite is just, first of all, he's a troll. He looks super cool. His beard goes down to his legs, which is really weird. But he's a troll. He can shoot out dynamites. That's awesome. He can leave bombs behind. Really weird, just out of nowhere ability, just like boom, like pounds the ground with his fists. It does like a shockwave. Great Skylander. Definitely my top 16. I just realized that like saying like top 10 SSA characters isn't a huge accomplishment because if there's 32, 10 of them are in your top 10, 10 of them in your bottom 10, and then there's 12 which are in the middle. So you're almost like you have a 50-50 shot almost to be like in the top 10 or like 25% chance to be in the. I'm not good at statistics. Let's just say it's like a 25% chance that you're in the top 10. Drill Sergeant is the character that I was talking about that probably is in the bottom 16 instead of being in the top 16. His drills are okay. They just and he like goes forward. It's fine. He has his ability like on the top of his head where like he'll shoot. It's okay. It's nothing special. He looks weird too. So I don't know if there's any Drill Sergeant fans out there that think his design looks cool. What I will say is that he is the first ever Skylander I got a chase variant for. I got Red Drill Sergeant back in 2012 or 2011 in a Walmart, so that was cool, I guess. Next up is Drobot, who is definitely the most broken character in Spyro's Adventure. He's so broken. He's really good. He's not that fun to play with because of how broken he is. But yeah, he's really good. His laser beams just do so much damage. Like you can just sit and just shoot his laser beams. That's his main ability. and it does so much damage. There's not even really a reason to use his other ability, which is like he shoots gears out of his wings. They do nothing, and then his other abilities, he can fly, so he can fly while shooting the laser beams. They do so much damage. I think they can ricochet if you go on a certain upgrade path. That could be wrong, but I think they can ricochet. Maybe not. Who knows? I don't know anything. And then the last Skylander of this intermission we'll talk about is Trigger Happy. Good old Trigger Happy. Another one of the poster boys of Skylanders. One of the starter pack characters along with Gilgrunt and Spyro. He's really good. I mean, he's ranged. I like me a ranged Skylander. He can shoot coins. He can shoot gold out of his guns. Pretty freaking cool if you like hold them together long enough. It's not that good because you have to hold them together for a super long time, especially if you're like in a bunch of waves enemies, like a giant like golden fire will come out of his gun, which is cool. And then he has the ability where like he'll shoot a gold pot at you, and then ability which is like, I'm kind of surprised that they let this slide in an rated. Is it like rated everyone 10 and up? I think this is what it was. I think it's a rated 10 and up game. He just has a machine gun and you can just mow down enemies. It's probably because they don't bleed. That's probably why they're allowed to get away with that. But then again, Spyro Reignited Trilogy, I think the reason why they got rid of some of the guns in Spyro's Reignited Trilogy so that it wouldn't get a teen rating. Weird tangent. He can use a machine gun. He can like turn his guns to a machine gun and mow down enemies. So that's cool. This is the Spyro's Adventure roster list or review. I think, like, again, a lot of the Skylanders in this are pretty good. I think most of them are decent Skylanders, but again, that's because the game's pretty easy. But yeah, let's get back to the game. After putting the water source in the core, Hugo spots a gate that is on the shore of the ruins open. So he asks us to go investigate it. When we do, we find a robot called the Clamtron 4000. He says he needs oil, so we bring oil over to him to save him, and he thanks us. He says that since we saved him, if we can bring him some clams, he can turn it into gold and give us a shiny pearl. We need 5 clams, so we bring him the 5 clams and he gives us back a black pearl. However, he's not pleased with this as it's not a shiny pearl. But Orc, the island merchant who wasn't important enough to bring up earlier, says that black pearls are actually the most valuable and to let him take a look at it. But when he does, he points out that the Clamtron actually just made a bomb. Hugo then walks up to us and tells us that the next object we need to find to rebuild the core is the Crystal Eye, which is in possession of the Cyclops at the Crystal Eye Castle, which is usually easy to get to from the ruins, but the Cyclops have blocked off the entrance to the bridge that will take us there. Now, isn't it convenient that we have a bomb making machine right next to us? I swear, did they make a whole character in this game just to fix a problem that the developers made themselves? Anyway, we use the bomb from the Clamtron to open up the entrance, and standing in the entrance is a mole man named Diggs, and he tells us that he just escaped from the Crystal Eye Castle, and that the Cyclops are using the Crystal Eye for evil. Because of course they are. That's kind of the whole thing. But he will take us to the castle if we can defeat the Cyclops. So we follow Diggs up to the bridge to the castle. Once we get there, Diggs explains that when he got near the top of the castle, his normally blind vision became very clear. So the Crystal Eye must be at the top. Then Diggs gets exploded by a barrel and freaking dies. Okay, he doesn't really die, but he's not there for the rest of the level. Now that we know our mission, we make our way up the rest of the ramps of the castle, defeating Cyclops along the way. An interesting mechanic that this level uses is with its walls. In order to open certain walls, you have to hit these Cyclops eye machines, and the wall will go down for a couple of seconds. Some walls take multiple eye statues to be hit in order to go down. Like I already mentioned, the main enemies of the level are Cyclops, which is the first time that we see them in this game. To be honest with you, Cyclops have never been my favorite enemies. That's mainly because some of the Cyclops, when they attack, are not able to be damaged. Like Oil Spill Islands, this level also makes the world of Skylands feel larger with the new enemies found here. The main castle at the end of the level is guarded by 2 energy beams. So in order to get those energy beams down, we have to go inside of 2 towers. The first one is really easy. You go in there, defeat 1 Cyclops Mammoth, and then destroy the light beam inside of the tower, and you're out. The other tower is on the opposite side of the level though. So you head over there while doing more wall puzzles. The wall puzzle right before the tower is the hardest in the game, having 4 different statues you need to destroy. And once you get into the tower, it's the exact same thing as last time. You have to destroy the light beams, and after you do that, you can get to the final part of the level, which is just another tower, but bigger this time. And this time you have to defeat a couple waves of enemies, and then you get the Crystal Eye, and you take it back to the ruins. And you know, something I really do love about this hub world is that you get to see piece by piece the core of light getting built throughout the game until it's finally done at the end of the game. After we get our eye, our next goal is to get the Eternal Earth Source. which is located in the next level Stone Town. So Diggs helps us get there. When we arrive at Stone Town, Diggs tells us that he senses something is wrong here. We get a view of the entire level, and near the end of the level there is a stone monster. Now, does the game explain how this happened? How the stone monster got here? No, but just go with it. An interesting aspect of the chapter Stone Town is that it's like a hybrid themed level. Pretty much all the main levels of the game have some sort of element theming behind them, but this level has themes of water and earth in it. The first half of the level has water theming with a big waterfall and obviously you traveling across the water. Then after you go through the Cyclops post, the theme for the level becomes earth, which makes sense as you are about to fight the earth elemental source. As for the boss fight, it's not that good, but it's probably one of my favorites in this game because most of the boss fights in this game are the same thing, that being fighting evil chaos minions. And this fight is not that at all. Is it the best fight ever? No, obviously not, but it's something very different from what we're going to see a lot in this game. After we defeat the stone golem, we obtain the eternal earth source and add it to the core. So back at the ruins after doing that, some tree guy sprouts out from the ground and tells us that his name is Arbo and that he's the son of Barbo and the child of Larbo, and before rattling off more family members, Hugo cuts him off by screaming, saying that it talks!
It talks! It talks!
But then apologizes and asks Arbo if he can help us with our journey. Arbo replies that he is only 8 seconds old, which is a lie because when you're playing the game, the time between when he sprouts fully and says how old he is actually 36 seconds. So take that, you liar. Tangent aside, Arbo says that in order to find the eternal life source, you have to gather the seeds of life and plant them so that the roots can point the way. After Arbo explains that, Arbo walks away and makes a giant beanstalk appear because he can do that, I guess. Hugo sees this and says it leads to the treetop terrace, the next level. And okay, I don't want to go on another tangent right after I just did one, but Hugo, what do you mean this looks like it leads to treetop terrace? How could you know that? It is a giant beanstalk that goes into the clouds. That's like if I looked at a random highway in Texas and said, oh yeah, that looks like it leads to New York City. But whatever, Hugo is right, and we go with Arbo up to the stalk to get the seeds of life. I feel like every time I'm segueing into the next level, I'm like, we have to go get this, or we have to obtain this, or we're going to this level, you know, to find this. So I counted, and 19 of the 22 main chapters, you're going to the level to get something. Now that isn't that crazy, because what else would we be doing at the levels? We're probably getting something. So I counted again, and 15 of the 22 chapters, you're going to get something related to the core of light. Look, I get it. It's a kid's game, you know, there isn't a great story to go along with it. But in this game, it should be called like Skylanders MacGuffin Adventure, because that's basically what it is. After we reach the top of the beanstalk, we are at Treetop Terrace, which is a nod to the Spyro level treetops, with giant sprawling trees throughout the entire level. Now, even though the beginning of the chapter makes Treetop Terrace look like a huge place, it's actually the level that took me the least amount of time to complete since Stormy Stronghold. And to be honest, there isn't a very good reason for this level to exist, because the very next level is pretty much the same thing as treetops. Well, actually, we do need this level because we absolutely must have the seeds of life to point us towards the eternal life source. I was being sarcastic if you couldn't tell. I'm starting to feel like a lot of these chapters are kind of just mushing together, and that's probably the consequence of these levels having an element theme attached to it. I do think the two biggest offenders of these are the undead levels, which we'll get to in a second, and the life levels. The water levels, despite all of them having that central theme of water, the element, they're all very different. Oil Spill Island is like this polluted wasteland. Darkwater Cove is a pirate theme level, and then Leviathan Lagoon is like a beach theme level. So despite them all having that water element, they're very different levels. After Treetop Terrace, you're going to see that a lot of these element themed levels are going to look very, very similar. And this is a big reason why, in my opinion, the back half of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure can be a slog to get through. Despite all what I just said, Treetops is actually a pretty decent level, albeit very short. You go through the trees taking down life-themed enemies, and near the end of the chapter, you have to complete a light puzzle and fight through one more wave of enemies to get the seeds of life. When we get back to the ruins, the seeds have been planted, but sheep are eating the fruits of the seeds, so we have to collect some of the fruit while making sure the sheep don't get to them first. This did not need to be in the game, but it is here anyway. After we do this, Arbo says that the eternal life source is hidden hidden in the Tree of Life, which is a real creative name, and it's also inside of a giant acorn. But then Arbo feels a disturbance in the tree forest and tells us that the forest is in danger and we need to get there quickly. So we do, but a cutscene plays before the level, and it's KAOS. The entire scene is KAOS talking about how he hates trees because they are hiding the acorn that has the eternal life source and wants them to be cut down. He orders Glumshanks to call his lumberjack trolls to cut down all the trees. Once we get to the level of the falling forest, we see trolls have already got into the area of the giant trees and are chopping them down with teeth machines. Throughout the level, you find dynamite in certain areas and can use it to destroy the machines. You also have to avoid giant moving metal spikes. Like Treetops, Falling Forest is also a very brief chapter, but this time it's because the main meat of the level is for the boss fight at the end. At the end of the level, we find the eternal life source, but KAOS is already there, and this is the same exact boss fight as the water one. KAOS releases an evil version of a Skylander, the first one being Zook, then after makes a spell that you have to avoid. Then after this, the second evil minion he releases is Stealth Elf, which is easily defeated too. We go through another spell section, and the last minion is Evil Stump Smash, which is also defeated pretty effortlessly. But the next spell section really made me mad. I swear this spell section went like for 10 times longer than any other spell section I played in the game. Like the first spell section went on for like 25 seconds, this one went on for like a minute and 30 seconds. Yes, I calculated again. Did I lose a lot of health here because I'm not that good at the game? Yes. But also, this was way longer than any other spell section in the game that I played, and I don't even remember this spell section being normally this long either. My Dino Ring died on the last part of the fight when you had to battle all 3 of the minions because of this. RIP him. But eventually we do get that eternal life source and put that thing in the core of light. While the NPCs of the ruins are staring at the core, kind of just talking about how cool it is, a giant robot just comes out of nowhere from the ground. If I had a nickel for every single time a Skylanders NPC was introduced by them coming out of the ground, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it'd be weird that it happened twice. The robot's name is General Robot. Again, really creative here, guys. General Robot asks who's in charge here, to which Flynn replies that he's in charge, at least of the ladies. Hey, you know, a good one, Flynn. But then General Robot says that he's looking for a Skylander. Then why didn't you say that the first time? But after the Skylander comes over to him, he says that the trolls have something unknown in a heavily guarded warehouse, and the Skylands intel believes that it's something that originated from the core of light. Hugo says that the general must be talking about the golden gear, and that the general's right, and we need this object to rebuild the core of light. So we say yes to go on the mission to get back to the golden gear, and in probably my favorite way to get to a level so far in the game, General Robot shoots us out of a giant cannon to the next level troll warehouse. The level starts out with you having to complete 2 different lock puzzles, and after doing that, you defeat a couple enemies before getting to a field. The warehouse that holds the golden gear is on the other side of the field. Unfortunately, we find out thanks to the Mabu Snuggles who accompanies us on this level that the field is full of mines. So now we have to find the map of the minefield to be able to get across. In the next area, we find 1 part of the map. We figure out that the map has been broken up into 4 parts, so we have to find 3 more map parts to finish the level. We find the second map part behind a lock puzzle right after, and after we get to the next part of the level, we find a big light puzzle. I guess they really wanted us to complete puzzles in this level because that's now the 4th puzzle we've done. After we complete the light puzzle, it opens up a bridge, and the 3rd part of the map is found on that bridge. But there are enemies where the bridge leaves off, and we have to get rid of them before we can complete the 5th puzzle of the level. This one being another lock puzzle. We do find the 4th and final map part in the section after the puzzle, and we can use the map to find the path of the minefield that is safe to get across and get the gear. Then the gear somehow turns into a rocket ship and we fly back home in it. It's pretty cool, I guess. A cutscene plays with KAOS complaining about how the Skylanders got the gear back, and Glumshank says, next, the Skylanders are probably going to be after KAOS's green goo. And I love the way KAOS says goo in this scene, just listen.
My goo! First it was my golden gear, now they're after my glowing green goo!
KAOS then tells Glumshanks to get his troll army and launch a full-scale attack. So I was thinking where to put this intermission, I was thinking, but I thought here after the 12th chapter, it is the perfect place to put it. Because, spoiler alert, there are still 2 intermissions after this, but they should be shorter than this. So I thought like pretty much at the middle of the game is a good place to put this. Anyway, if you watched my Superchargers video, I did a review of the 3DS game for Superchargers. And the reason I did that is because the 3DS games are very different from the console games. And we're doing it again here. Because just like last time, the 3DS version of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure has a completely different story and a completely different gameplay than the console version. So I think it is important that we talk about it. So let's get right into the Skylanders Spyro's Adventure 3DS experience. The game starts with an Eon monologue as per usual. He shows us the Radiant Isles, which were home to the peaceful Mystic Seekers. But then the darkness came, and with it came the villain Hector, an invader from the Outlands. He enslaved the Mystic Seekers and made them make the Dark Mirror, which shrouded the Radiant Isles from the rest of Skylands, keeping the Secret's powers to himself. So right off the bat, I love that KAOS is not the main villain of this game. In fact, KAOS, despite in I think Skylanders Supercharger's 3DS version and Wii version, he is not in any of the games. Look, I do enjoy KAOS, but it does disappoint me that pretty much he is the only main villain throughout the entire console games for Skylanders. I know people say the Darkness is the main villain for Skylanders Superchargers, but like for the most part, KAOS was the main villain. It's funny how in Skylanders, the game based off Spyro, they actually went with the Crash Bandicoot route and made the villain the same every single game instead of going the Spyro route and making every villain different. So I think that's something kind of funny to point out. But basically what I'm trying to say is Skylanders Spyro's Adventure 3DS is off to a great start. Eon tells us that our calling awaits and we must lead our Skylanders to defeat Hector and free the Radiant Isles. We then see some Mystic Seekers and one of them starts talking to us. He says his name is Fargus and his son's name is Wendell. Fargus starts trying to use his staff, but we hear Hector in the background. Fargus explains that Wendell shall help us and we need to gather crystals to make a shattering sigil to destroy the Dark Mirror. Then Hector appears and takes Fargus away, but his staff still remains. Wendell says that we need to get to the sanctuary because it's the only place where Hector can't find us, and that we can summon our Skylanders there. For whatever reason, when you're in the game, NPCs can't speak to you. They don't actually have voice lines, you just have to read a text box here. But Wendell helps us summon a Skylander and we're off and running in the game. Also, I only have a 2DS and there's no really easy way to record gameplay with it, so none of the gameplay in this section is mine, so the credit for the videos will be on the bottom right hand of the screen. The first section of the gameplay is kind of like a temple run styled game. There aren't really any side areas and we just go forward on one path. When we get to a castle and find a crystal, the game pauses and says Hector is coming and a timer appears telling us we only have 3 minutes and 55 seconds to complete the level before Hector gets us. Now this is a tad bit of a spoiler, but this happens in every level and I really do not like this in-game mechanic. However, I'm a bit more forgiving with it than I would be in most cases because of how the game is structured. Remember how I said the first level plays kind of somewhat like Temple Run where you just run down a path? Well, that's pretty much every level in the game. See, normally I would complain about how the Hector timer that comes on ruins the exploration of the level, but there really isn't that much to explore here. Okay, but now that we've completed the first level, let's talk about some core gameplay mechanics for the 3DS version of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. First off, how do we use the Skylanders? Well, in the 3DS version, you get a smaller portal that can only fit one Skylander on it. To use this new Skylander, you have to go to Wendell in the hub world and he will help you. The Skylander you are using is brought into the game by Wendell with his staff, so the Skylander you are currently using will be removed from the game and will be replaced with the Skylander you want to bring in. You have to point your 3DS, or in my case 2DS, at the portal for a bit longer than a usual portal sequence on consoles, but then you get your Skylander in the game. And something cool is that you can actually have 2 Skylanders at your disposal anytime. But make sure you have the Skylander you want in a level because you can only change what 2 Skylanders you want at the hub world. Okay, but now onto the game. In this game, Skylanders not only can jump, they can double jump. You can double jump in Skylanders 3DS, but you can't even jump once in the console versions. This is one of the only areas where the 3DS is better than the console counterparts in my opinion. The Skylanders movesets are also more simple. You still have their primary and secondary attacks, but every single Skylander's third attack has been removed for a speed move, which with how the game is set up is actually very needed since you have a limited amount of time to complete levels. And that's it really. Skylanders with combo moves don't have them anymore, but I do get this because of the 3DS's limitations. The game has 5 main areas: the Brighthold Battlements, Riven Rock Caverns, Winterfall Summits, LAIR Jungle, and Galecrack Ruins. Each one of these areas has 5 different sections, 3 of these being sections which you would consider levels in the game at least, and 2 of them are like arena battles. In the level segments there are kind of elemental gates, but they are called challenges and they are not super long. But let's go back to the Brighthold Battlements. We already finished the first level of the area, Towerside Fields. The next part is an arena battle called Proving Grounds. In all these battle segments there are 3 rounds, and with it being the first one ever, Proving Grounds is very easy. You just have to avoid getting hit by a flamethrower in the middle and finish the section before Hector comes. Next up is Flooded Viaducts, and it's cool. As the name suggests, you are going around a flooded of the area and there really isn't much to talk about, I'm now realizing with these 3DS levels. Our second battle arena of the Brighthold Battlements is the Radiant Fountain. This one is actually easier than the first arena battle because you don't have to jump over fire like in the first one, and I have a lot more time to move here. Now, the last segment of the Brighthold Battlements area is Dream Gardens. In every last level of each of the 5 areas, you save a Mystic Seeker, and this one you save is Buford. I would say that the Dream Gardens is my favorite level out of the 3 in this area, and there's also a cool part where you jump over a Leviathan. Now is probably the best time to mention the collectibles in this game. The collectibles are the Radiance and the Radiance Crystals. You get Radiance by defeating enemies and destroying boxes and stuff like that in levels, and you get Radiance Crystals by doing certain challenges in the levels. But you also need Radiance Crystals to unlock the other 4 areas of the game. So before we can enter Riven Rock Caverns, we need 5 Radiance Crystals, which isn't too hard as you can actually get 5 Radiance Crystals in each level if you complete all the challenges. So now that we have our 5 crystals, we can enter the first level of Riven Rock Caverns, Ash Burrow. Now Ash Burrow is actually a very neat little level. You start outside in a little village, then you enter a giant cave, and you go deeper and deeper into the cave while avoiding falling in lava. At this point of the game, it's very clear that platforming is a key aspect of the game. In 2011, while Skylanders Spyro's Adventure console versions were considered to be dungeon crawler platformers, it didn't really involve too much platforming, but in the 3DS version, you have to platform a lot. Now to the first arena battle of Riven Rock Caverns, Magma Bank Islands. This one is definitely the hardest one yet, as lava that damages you will come out of the ground and you have to move around to get away from it. Now we get to a real level with Cinder Stream Pass, and this one is pretty much like Ash Burrow, except with a little less platforming, and instead of lava below you, it's water. For our second arena battle, we have Luminous Quarry, and just like in Brighthold Battlements, the second battle arena is easier, noticeably. For the last level of Riven Rock Caverns, we go to Lava Flow Grotto, where we have to save the Mystic Seeker Tizwig. Interesting name. This level is definitely the hardest one yet, as the platforms that you use within this level get destroyed if you stay on them for too long. After we finish that level, if you have 15 Radiance Crystals, we can enter the third area of the game, the Winterfall Summits. As you can assume by the name of the area, the first level, Snow Blind Hills, is winter and ice themed, and I'm running out of things to say with the 3DS levels, besides what they look like, since not that much happens in them. So let's go to the first battle arena, which is Frost Hedge. And just like in most of the first arena battles, there is a hazard to deal with. And this one, the floor is made up of thin ice, and if you stand on certain areas for too long, the ice will break. Next up is Glacial Slopes, which is actually a very nice looking level for a 3DS game. There's an ice storm going on while you play it, and there's a bunch of different colored giant ice shards throughout the level. You're never gonna guess it, but the second arena battle of Winterfall Summits is easier than the first. I swear they did this on like purpose for some reason, but yes, Ice Light, the second battle arena, is pretty easy. There is no hazard here. Now for the final level of the summits, we have Aurora Peak, and the Mystic Seeker we save here is Esmerelli. I think that's how you say her name. And whoa, the backdrop here is actually kind of crazy. It's dark purple and it looks like there's a spinning vortex below you, then there's a pink spinning light around it too. But other than the background, Aurora Peak plays a lot like Glacial Slopes, but it is a very nice looking level. For the fourth area of the game, LAIR Jungle, you need 25 Radiance Crystals before entering it. The first level of the LAIR Jungles is Leafhook Village, and it is literally just treetops, except it has wooden spike traps all over it. For our first arena battle, we have Break Marsh, and the obstacle here is that you have to deal with wooden platforms that will drop into water, but it's very easy to avoid falling down here. But in the last round of the battle, the platforms will move apart from each other, making you have to jump from platform to platform. The next level is Daystar Temple, and it is like an ancient jungle temple theme. One of the better levels in the game so far, actually. I love the theme. I'm going to sound like a broken record now, but the second battle arena, Treetop Circle, is easier than the first battle arena, as it has no hazards you have to avoid. The last level of the LAIR Jungles is Water Walkway, and here the Mystic Seeker you have to save is Humphrey. Water Walkway follows in the same footsteps as Daystar Temple with the ancient jungle temple theme, but I think I like Water Walkway more, and I can't really explain why, I just had more fun with it. Now with 35 Radiance Crystals, we can unlock the final area of the game, Galecrack Ruins. And the first level here is Sunblight Wood, which is like an undead themed level, but you also have woods in the level as the name suggests. A nice, neat little level. For our first arena battle section level, the hazard here is the most interesting yet. There's a tornado in the middle of the arena, and smaller tornadoes will spawn and go after you. Whipwind Mountains is next up, and so far it's probably the hardest level, at least for me when it comes to platforming. There are a couple sections that I actually had trouble with here, which is a first. I'm not even going to say it anymore, you know what happened. in Stormside, the second battle arena of Galekrack Ruins. And now we're at the final level here, Galekrack Castle. Remember how I said a second ago that Whipwind Mountains was the hardest level? Well, it has been taken over by Galekrack Castle. This level took me longer to finish than I would like to admit. It's not really even that bad, I just suck at the game. When you finally do save Fargus, Hector appears and takes him again, so what was even the point of saving him in the first place? But now that we have the Mystic Seekers we need and can make the Shattering Sigil, we can now go to the Dark Mirror to take on Hector, and you need 50 Radiance Crystals. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I did not have 50 Radiance Crystals when I got to this part of the game. I had to go back and get some. But once I got my 50, I was ready. The Dark Mirror starts out with an arena battle actually, as we have to defeat Hector's minions, and some of them will drop rockets that we shoot at Hector. After you shoot them at Hector, he will fall on the ground, giving you some time to attack him. Once this section is over, Fargus' staff appears and you grab it, and then Hector starts chasing you, and now your platforming skills will be put to the test. While you're being chased, you have to complete some of the hardest platforming yet in the game, as there are moving ones and Hector will destroy some right after you land on them. Once you get to the end of this very long platforming part, you place the staff down and activate the beacon. A cutscene plays showing the Seekers activating the giant radiant shard in the hub world, and that shard sends its power to the staff all the way where we are at, and the power of it destroys the Dark Mirror, and in the process destroys Hector once and for all, freeing the Radiant Isles. Fargus gives Wendell his staff, telling him that he has earned his place among the Mystic Seekers. Then we finally get to see Floating Head Eon again, and he tells us that Skylands owes us a debt of gratitude, and that our journey with our Skylanders is only just beginning. And roll credits. Real quick, I want to rank all 5 main areas of the game. So in 5th and last place, I am putting the Brighthold Battlements here pretty easily. The rest in my opinion are actually pretty close, but Brighthold Battlements is pretty clear in last place. It's kind of boring and there's not much going on there. In 4th place, I am putting Galekrack Ruins, and it's not because it's the hardest area of the game, I'm just not too big of a fan of the undead theme. It's never really been my favorite element theme, so it's at 4th. In 3rd is Riven Rock Caverns. It has some very fun platforming in the beginning of the game, but I just like the 2 remaining more. I've always been more of a fan of water than fire, so that's why Winterfall Summits is 2nd. It has some of the best looking levels in the entire game, and it's just fun to play honestly. But 1st place for me is LAIR Jungle. It has the most consistently good levels out of the 5 areas and some fun platforming too. But we still have one more thing to talk about with the 3DS game, and that is because the DLC levels that are in the console versions of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure are also here. You get 1 level and 1 arena battle with each one. You know, I don't want to spend too much time on these, but I will say that 2 out of the 4 of the DLC levels are faithful recreations of the levels on a smaller scale, those being Pirate Seas and Dragon's Peak. They are very similar to their console counterparts. But Dark, Light Crypt, and Empire Vice, what went wrong, man? Empire Vice is in no way at all anything like the console version. It takes place in an arcane underground fortress. Why? In Dark Light Crypt, instead of switching between realms, you're just in an undead place, underground as well. What a shame. Well, that's finally it with the 3DS version of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. We laughed, we cried, and we saved the Radiant Isles. Okay, so now we have completed the 3DS version of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, and, overall, I think it was an okay experience. I'm not going to say it was anything amazing, and the lack of exploration, I think, really hurt it. And I get it, it's a 3DS game, what can you expect? But, just going down pretty much one path the entire game, that kind of gets boring after a while. But if you take it for what it is, I think it is you can have a fun time playing the game. It is a very short experience, as you would expect. I think I finished it in 2.5 hours. I still really don't understand why they made the Hector time limit. I think it can only hurt the game. I don't really see any positives with it, because now you're rushing players to get through the game instead of them taking their time and having fun with it. You're making them rush through it. I just don't get the idea there. I guess they wanted Hector to have feel like more of a present threat in the game by doing that. So I get it from that angle, but still I'm not a huge fan of what they did. I want to reiterate though that I really do love that they made a new villain for this game. Obviously with it being a 3DS game, we didn't really get any cutscenes about Hector. He wasn't really fleshed out as a character. He was just kind of like a bad guy. So Hector, unfortunately, didn't really get to shine all that much. But just him being there is just such a breath of fresh air. And also, unlike KAOS, Hector actually looks pretty menacing. He is kind of like Eon. He's just a floating head, but for a floating head, he's pretty scary looking. But I think we've taken long enough for this intermission. So let's get back to the main game. Let's talk about the second half of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. So when we last left off, KAOS was afraid that the Skylanders were going to get his green goo, which is actually reasonable because the first thing Hugo says when we get back to the ruins after obtaining the golden gear is that we need the green goo of Primoridia to grease up the gear. However, when the core was destroyed, all the green goo got drained out of the core and he doesn't know where to find it. Luckily for us, General Robot says that the troll military has recently taken a huge leap forward in their technological ability, and he suspects that the green goo is behind it. So he tells us that we should go to the front lines and help his forces get past the trolls, and hopefully the trolls will have it. After saying yes, once again we get shot out of a cannon and hit the chapter 13 Goo Factory. When I said front lines, I was not lying. This chapter is straight out of a war game with trenches and metal spikes. When we enter the level, Snuckles is there again and says that we need to find the Mabu captain. So we make our way through the trenches, taking on trolls in the process. When we finally make it to the captain, we find out Rizzo and Mabu from earlier in the game has become the captain of the Mabu forces. He tells us that the factories that we are looking for are behind this giant gate, but they have turrets attached to them which have them pinned down right now. But his scouts have told him that there's a stockpile of mega bombs at the end of the hill and that the trolls occupy them, but to be careful because they have heavy artillery. So we go up this hill avoiding shots being rained down on us, and at the top of this hill we find Nort, another Mabu from earlier in the game, that has joined the Mabu defense force. After clearing out more trolls, we find the mega bomb and we use it to destroy the giant wall with turrets. Behind the wall is the last line of the troll defense, and we take over their 3 forts, planting our flag, and we secure the factories. So we get the goo along with Rizzo and Nort and get shot back in another cannon back to the ruins and put the green goo in the core. Hugo asks General Robot if the Skylands intel has found out where the eternal tech source is, and the general replies that intel says trolls have hidden it in their base and have used it to make new weapons, and that's why he is coming with us to the next chapter, Battlefield, and we never see him once there. Battlefield is very similar to Goo Factory, as we are once again in the trenches fighting trolls. However, here there are more open areas where you can defeat trolls too. After battling our way through more trenches and open fields, we find Rizzo again, and he says to get past the trolls' barriers and to get the tech source, we are once again going to have to use a mega bomb. We use the bomb to destroy a wall, and behind it is the troll's secret weapon, a giant tank, which the eternal tech source is being used to power it. Now here I'm pretty sure you're supposed to use the smaller bombs to destroy it, but you can easily just go behind the giant tank and hit its weak point and annihilate it. This is a boss fight, by the way. There's a health bar, I am counting it. So we grab the tech source and put that bad boy in the core. We get a KAOS cutscene after where KAOS blames Glumshanks for the Skylanders getting the eternal tech source. However, KAOS says he's feeling optimistic because the darkness is becoming more powerful as it's spreading across all of Skylands. A fly then flies on KAOS's head, then goes into his throat and chokes him. Absolute cinema. We are now back at the ruins, and what KAOS said is true actually, as the sky around us has gotten a lot darker as the darkness grows more powerful. General Robot tells us well done. Then we hear a door with a skull on it open out of nowhere near the beach. Hugo says that the spirits of the undead don't cross over unless they've been severely disturbed and says we should investigate it. When we go down there, a jumping skull comes out of the door and says his name is T-Bone. He deduces that we are a Skylander and asks us to help him find the rest of his body. You know, something that they didn't need to do but they added here anyway is that as you help him get more and more bones in his body, the picture on his text box changes with him, which I find funny. After we collect all of T-Bone's bones, Hugo tells him that his head would make a perfect receptacle for the next eternal source and asks him if he has an extra head. T-Bone says that he obviously doesn't have an extra head, but knows where we can find a skull mask. But we have to go down into the underworld to find it. So we follow T-Bone down to the underworld and to the 15th chapter of the game, Crawling Catacombs. If you remember, like a little bit earlier in the video, I said that the undead levels were the biggest offenders of all feeling like the same level. And mushing together and making the game feel kind of boring to get through. Well, we're here now, you know? I would consider this part the rock bottom or the low point of Skylanders Spyro's adventure. There was worse one-off levels earlier in the game, like Sky Shadow Docks. I really hate that level. But I think the undead levels are consistently subpar levels. They are consistently boring levels to play through, and there being 3 of them back to back to back it just makes the game really hard to get through. So if it feels like I'm trying to get through these levels quicker than I normally would, it's because I am. I don't want to talk about these levels for too long. When we finally make it to the catacombs, T-Bone explains to us that we should be fine as long as we don't run into any spiders, and then a spider appears and scares T-Bone off. So we go through the level defeating spiders along the way and find a gate with 3 keyholes. We explore the area more and find the keys. Once we get past the gate, the level gets a lot darker and we can barely see what's in front of us, and then literally 6 seconds later it goes away. So what was the point of that? Those eyes from the Crystal Eye Castle make a comeback here, and we have to hit 2 of them to bring down another gate. We just walk some more and find a Gargantula, and this thing scared me a lot when I was a kid first playing this, but it's actually a lot easier to defeat than you would think. We go down a staircase and our vision gets taken away from us again, but this time it actually doesn't come back for a while. There is another gate with keyholes in it. We get those keys and get to the final part of the level. We have to fight off a bunch of spiders and we can finally get the skull mask. After we put the mask into the core, Hugo says that we now need to find the eternal undead source. But then T-Bone reminds us that this is a MacGuffin game and we need to meticulously find another smaller object before the even bigger object. This smaller object being the skeleton key to get to the citadel that holds the undead source. Do you see why I'm getting upset? The undead section only needed to be like 1 level, but no, we have to have 3 for no reason. Anywho, off to get that skeleton key in chapter 16, the Cadaverous Crypt. This time T-Bone promises us that he will not leave us again, but he gets walled off, leaving us again by ourselves. So good job with that, T-Bone. When we enter, there's a giant cannon and we shoot it to get to the next section. We go left and move some blocks and find ourselves in an area with 2 walls, and we need to get through both of them, but we need to find a button to open one of them. There's also these enemies in this level that for whatever reason can only be defeated by a fire Skylander or if you shoot them with a cannon, so I just switched to Eruptor. That annoyed me more than it should have. We find the first button and lower the first wall. We then get into a room with another cannon and have to move it down some rails, but the rails aren't facing the right way, so we have to go into some rooms to move some levers to get it to go the right way. Once we get the cannon to destroy a wall, this somehow makes the other wall we need to get past go down, and also makes a wall that has a key behind it fall. We grab the key and use it to open a gate. Behind it is yet another cannon, and we use it to destroy a wall which has another cannon behind it, and we use that cannon to hit a bridge down. The end of this level is pretty much like the last one. We have to fight off multiple waves of undead enemies before getting a skeleton key. T-Bone then attaches his head to the key. Nice. Now that we've gotten smaller thingy, we can get bigger thingy, aka the eternal undead source in chapter 17, Creepy Citadel. Instead of painstakingly moving cannons, we do some good old light puzzles. We do 2 at the beginning of the level. After completing the second one, it opens up the gate to the citadel. Once we get into it, we have to defeat a lot of undead enemies, and we find ourselves outside of the citadel in this weird segment where we're in a swamp and have to move these box goblins. This part of the level is very out of left field per se, but eventually we get out of the swamp and back into the citadel, and we have to do this button puzzle where the buttons make certain blocks move, and we have to make the blocks move to where we can eventually get out of the area, and once we do, we can finally get to the undead fight. And if you think we're gonna get a cool fight after all of these boring levels, you're wrong. It's just like all the other boss fights. The first evil minion KAOS spawns is Evil Ghost Roaster, which you can defeat pretty easily. Then KAOS does the spell segment. The undead spell is like a laser beam that you have to avoid, but the lasers also take some time to work. The second minion is Evil Chop Chop, and I died here because defeating Evil Chop Chop without a ranged Skylander is a horrible experience. And then I died again because I suck. We do another spell segment, and the final evil minion is Hex, which is definitely the easiest by far. And I died again though in the section where KAOS spawns all 3 evil minions because I'm not that good. Then we finally defeat all 3 of them and get that undead source. So I'm realizing I never talked about this, so I'll talk about this now after completing yet another evil minion boss fight. The next time we will get a boss fight is the fire evil minions. It will be another evil minion boss fight yet again. But if you counted, that means there's only 4 evil minion boss fights. Those being water, fire, undead, and life. Earth got the golem boss fight. Tech had that weird troll tank boss fight. Magic and air don't really get boss fights, so that means only half of the elements got an evil minion representative boss fight. Now, I am led to believe that the only reason why half of the elements got the minion boss fights is because of the Hydra. If you remember at the beginning of the game, a 4-headed creature was the thing that destroyed the Core of Light. And minor spoiler here, but the Hydra, which is what it was, comes back at the end of the game. But there are only 8 elements, and Hydras only have 9 heads. Wait, what? Skylanders has become such a big part of my life that I believed that, according to Greek mythology, Hydras only had 4 heads because Skylanders told me so. Anyway, I looked it up, and it said in Greek mythology, Hydras usually are depicted having 9 heads, but it can vary. So anyway, back to the point. The reason why I believe we got 4 evil minion boss fights is because the developers thought it'd be kind of hard to make a Hydra that has 8 heads, so they just kind of decided on what elements they wanted to make the Hydra have, and then they just left the other 4 elements with nothing pretty much. Or I could be totally wrong and I'm on nothing. That is an option too. Alright, so I did this in my last video, so I'm gonna do it again. This shouldn't be a long intermission segment. By the way, Micah Parsons, he's going crazy in the 2025 season, trust. Basically, in my last video for Superchargers, I did a Things I Forgot segment, where I just kind of listed off the things that I forgot or that I wanted to talk about, but it didn't feel like I could naturally talk about them within any of the segments, so I'm doing that again. There isn't that much stuff here, but there is a couple things that I did want to talk about that I didn't really have the chance to. Sorry, this intermission segment is kind of out of nowhere. I didn't really plan on anywhere where to put this in the video, so it's right here. I actually don't know what I mean when I'm saying right here, as I'm gonna figure that out when I'm editing the video. You know, by the way, I mean, just look at the buff collection, man. It's growing like crazy. It's actually, there's more buffs over here. You can't really see it. There's more buffs though. Look at that. Yeah, more buff city over here. We love Survivor over here, you know. Anyway, the first one is the starter pack. I never really talked about the starter pack. I don't know why this is. It's a pretty big deal. Basically, the Skylanders starter pack it comes with 3 Skylanders, the portal, and the game. This is what the Skylanders Adventure starter pack looked like. It came with Trigger Happy, Gilgrunt, and Spyro. Now, the 3DS starter pack is actually different. It comes with different characters. It looks like this. It obviously comes with the game, a little smaller portal, and it comes with Igniter, Dark Spyro, and Stealth Elf. I've always liked that they made the 3DS starter packs different than the console starter packs. It's just kind of unique, makes it fun. Starter packs are pretty important, and I never really talked about it, so I feel like I can talk about it now. But there isn't that much to talk about. It's just a box for the game and some characters. What I will say is that obviously, it feels like it more now just because it's been like this forever, but Spyro, Trigger Happy, and Gilgrunt just feel like such iconic characters. Feels right that they're put in the starter pack. And it's actually funny as, you know, Gilgrunt pretty much becomes the poster boy of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. You know, Spyro was the guy named after the first game. So there's that. Obviously, they were going to put Spyro in the starter pack. And I feel like the starter packs always choose, at least the console ones, choose like, I'm not saying they're boring, but like not the most coolest looking Skylanders, because they want you to go out and buy those, I think. But Gilgrunt and Trigger Happy, I think, were great choices for the starter pack. Okay, the next thing is Spyro's Kingdom. I never thought I was gonna organically be able to talk about this, so here we are. Basically, Spyro's Kingdom is the concept game before Skylanders was made. Basically, it was gonna be, I think, like an RPG almost, and they were gonna have like these different characters in the game. Here are like some early concepts. Boomer was one of the original characters, and obviously you have Tarclops, who later became Zap. Basically, I guess eventually they thought like pretty much Spyro wasn't even like a main character in Spyro's Kingdom. He was kind of like an NPC or something. So they changed it to Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. But Spyro's Kingdom, like right here, is where the idea of Toys to Life started, and eventually it later grew into Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. So Spyro's Kingdom, shout out to you for helping start Toys to Life. Okay, next is post-game content. I never really talked about post-game content in Superchargers because it was just pretty much racing. Here there's actually other stuff to do, but I just feel like post-game content is like kind of hard to make an intermission about, because it's like after the game ends, it feels like kind of weird to make this whole segment for it. So I'm going to talk about it here. Basically, all the post-game content for this game is heroic challenges, which I talked about with Callie. They're just kind of missions you can do Skylanders to give them certain stat boost, I'm pretty sure. And then there's also PvP. Now, PvP is obviously very popular within the Skylanders community. People are very mad that it wasn't every single game. I get that. Personally, I've never been a huge fan of it, but that's just me. I get why people do like it, though. It is fun to be able to battle your friends with your Skylanders. There's different modes. There's straight up just battle arena, and there's other modes like, actually, who cares about the other modes? Everyone, like, no one's playing like that one football game, and I think it's in Spyro's Adventure. Other than that, I think you can kind of put adventure pack levels as DLC content, or not DLC content, as a post-game content, because they technically take place after the game. Spyro's Adventure post-game content, though, is pretty bare bones like the game itself. There isn't too much to talk about when it comes to that. That's why I didn't really want to make an intermission segment, because I didn't think I was going to be able to expand on a lot of things that happened here, and I didn't want to make a huge intermission segment about something that I don't think is that important when it comes to this video, but we're talking about it here. So yeah, you can do PvP, heroic challenges, and DLC levels, so it's pretty fun. Okay, last one I kind of want to talk about. I think it has been important. I did touch on it a bit. I will touch on it a bit actually later in the KAOS level, but the Wii has some different aspects to the XSpec versions. Basically, XSpec versions are everything that isn't Wii or 3DS. So, Xbox, PS3. I think the computer versions are XSpec. I could be wrong about that. And the Wii version, which is the version made by Toys for Bob. That's what people always consider it the superior version. Personally, I don't consider the Wii version superior. I like the Xbox 360 version, but that's just me. Basically, the Wii version is different because you can skip most dialogue in the Wii version. In the XSpec versions, you can't do that. That kind of sucks. Character portraits look different. Basically, the pictures of the characters next to the dialogue box, those are different in the Wii versions too. And the Skylanders HUDs look different. And actually, it's kind of funny. The Wii version, basically the version that has worse graphics, tries to make like the Skylanders icons on their HUD look 3D, while the XSpec versions, the versions with better graphics, actually make them look like 2D. I always thought that's kind of like a funny difference about them. And some collision mechanics are also different. Like when you move bombs and stuff like that in the Wii version, I think they don't move around as much. Like in the Xbox versions, like those big bombs and like Battlefield and stuff like that move around like a lot. In the Wii version, they barely move. I actually could be getting those swapped. I know that is true, though. That stuff moves differently in the game. The collision mechanics do work differently. Okay, I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that I did not talk about that I should have? Can't think of it. This intermission segment is probably pretty short, but I did think it's important. So yeah, let's get back to the game. We get back to the ruins and see that it has gotten even darker, even though we have gotten another elemental source. But then we see a barrier has opened up to a train and Diggs is there. Diggs says that he and some moles were digging for something called the Crucible of the Ages, but then there was a cave-in. Hugo exclaims that we actually need the Crucible of the Ages for the Core of Light, because of course we do. But the actual reason is because it is the only relic in the world that can contain the power of the eternal fire source. We need to get down to that cave, but the cave is walled off. So we get a bomb from the Clamtron, remember him? And we use it to open the cave entrance again, and we're off to level 18 Molokan Mine. And this is one of the shortest levels in the game. You are given a pickaxe also to get past some rocks. To finish the level, we have to explore the mine and find 7 mole men. You find the first one right at the entrance of the level. After going down the track some more, you find the second mole right behind some rocks. The third one is behind some crystal that you have to use a cannon to destroy. We use a pickaxe some more to find the fourth mole, and right by the fourth mole is the fifth mole. You just have to destroy a little wall of stone. We go to the left part of the mine and the sixth mole is there, and exploring the left part some more, we find the 7th and last mole. After doing that, we find Diggs, and he says that he's injured his leg and we have to push him in a minecart all the way back to the entrance of the cave. In the tone that he says it, I think the developers are trying to play it off like Diggs isn't actually injured and he's just lazy. Oh, and Diggs also found the Crucible of the Ages, and they never explain how. After the level is over, we get a KAOS cutscene. KAOS tells Glumshanks that he has a job for him. He wants Glumshanks to stop the Skylanders. KAOS says that things for them are pretty bad right now, but as long as they can stop us from getting one eternal source, the Skylanders cannot complete the core. So KAOS tells Glumshanks that all he needs to do is go underground and sabotage the tracks of the mine train that lead to the eternal fire source while withstanding the heat of a burning volcano. Very easy task, I know. Back at the ruins, Hugo says that those tracks in the Molokan Mine lead to the eternal fire source, so Diggs offers to take us on a train down there, and we go with him to Chapter 19 Lava Lakes Railway. We start off back in the Molokan Mine and have to fix the track as Glumshanks actually listened to KAOS and turned a bunch of the rails. Once we do, we ride down back in the train with Diggs into the lava caverns. We are riding the track and see that Glumshanks actually did what KAOS asked of him some more, as the railroad has been sabotaged. We see that Glumshanks is messing with the track, but once he sees us, he gets scared and runs away. We fix the tracks by moving around some stone blocks to fill up the spaces that were left open. So after we can fix the tracks completely, we hop back into the train, and we run into Glumshanks, and he tries running away from the train, but with the train catching up to him, he jumps off into the lava and somehow survives just because we see him in a cutscene later. Then we finally make it to the lava lakes at the bottom of the cavern. We have to fight our way through some more lava enemies, and we finally make it to the fire boss fight. KAOS pops up and yaps like normal and spawns the first fire minion, Evil Flameslinger. And just like most of the minions, he isn't that hard to defeat. Now, I think this is the only time this happens in the game, but the spell that KAOS uses at first, after the first fire minion, is not the same spell as he uses for the rest of the fight. The first spell, fireballs just fall from the sky, but for the rest of the fight after this, fireballs come up from the ground and tunnel their way towards us in the arena, until the final part of the fight because he uses both. Anyway, after that segment, the second fire minion is Sunburn, and since I was using Eruptor, who is kind of a ranged Skylander, but not really, it was a bit of a task to take him down, but I did get through it. The next fire spell happened, and I hate this spell so much because if you get hit by it once, it will like bounce you around, and most of the time it will bounce you back into more of the fire. Basically, I died here with Eruptor is what I'm trying to say. And speaking of which, the final evil minion is Eruptor. And something I noticed is that the reason this fight is harder for me is not because of the fire minions, because whenever I fought one of them, I never got defeated. It's the spell. It's the freaking spell. Also, for some reason, Evil Eruptor's health bar glitched out, so I had no idea how much health he had until I beat him. Then the three of them come back, and the first spell comes back and started raining down fire, but I was able to defeat Evil Sunburn. But then I got hit by literally every single thing in the arena, and I died again. I low-key suck at this game. But both remaining evil minions were on low health now, and I got rid of both of them very quickly. So we get that eternal fire source and pop it into the core of light. So back at the ruins, Hugo tells us that the core needs a very special type of magic and he doesn't know where to find it. But then the person we least expect to help us out, Flynn, comes out and says that the weird statue out in the water that we've all been wondering about is moving. So we go out and take a look at it. The statue wakes up and says his name is the Weapon Master. He says that he is the last of the Archean Weapon Masters, and they understood the connection between magic and technology. The Weapon Master then says that they have waited for someone to pass their secrets to, and that what we pursue is near. Then the Weapon Master asks us if we are ready to pass the Great Chain of Time, whatever that means. Oh yes, baby. It is time for Chapter 20 of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. I'm so excited. The level I'm talking about, of course, is the Quicksilver Vault. I think I alluded to it one point earlier in the video that my favorite level of all time is in this game, but this is it. And it really couldn't come at a better time because I said that, the back half of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure is kind of boring to get through. But now we are here at what, in my opinion, is the best Skylanders level of all time. Okay, so I know no one's going to get this reference, but I'm going to make it anyways. So my favorite show of all time is Survivor. I think you can kind of tell. I got a bunch of, Survivor buffs right here on the wall. I think you can see them. It has 47 seasons currently, and the 48th season is about to air. And probably by the time this video gets out, a couple episodes of season 48 have already aired. A lot of Survivor fans call seasons 21 through 26 the dark ages of Survivor. It is Survivor's rock bottom. However, season 25, Survivor Philippines, is actually a pretty great season in between a bunch of subpar and bad seasons. And basically what I'm trying to get at is that Quicksilver Vault is the Skylanders Spyro's Adventure Survivor Philippines. It is an amazing level, smashed between some pretty mediocre and bad levels. Like I said, it's a breath of fresh air for me when it comes to playing this game. But let's not hesitate anymore and get to the best level in all of Skylanders history, at least in my humble opinion. Oh my goodness, the soundtrack alone from this level brings so much nostalgia. We enter the level on the chain and see a vast ocean of Quicksilver below us. The skybox here is dark blue and looks beautiful. The Weapon Master appears in a hologram form and says that the eternal magic source was the original source of all creations, which gets retconned in later games, but who cares. The Weapon Master tells us that this area is basically a test to see if we can be trusted with the energy that flows through everything that is magic, the Quicksilver. Then we can play the level, and oh my goodness, I love this level. It's such an amazing looking level, even with Spyro's Adventure's less than ideal graphics. We have to find a key to unlock a gate. We get that key, then walk over some amazing looking Quicksilver. After finding another key for another gate, the Weapon Master appears again and says that what's behind the gate is the last of the ancient Archean's defenses of the Quicksilver. To be able to open the vault of the Quicksilver, the Weapon Master tells us that 3 energy beams must be aligned with the 3 seals of the vault. So we make our way down a giant chain to the ancient Archean's trials. After getting past more enemies, we find a chain that leads to a teleportation portal, and we get a light puzzle. By completing this puzzle, we light up the first seal. We ride on another chain and complete another light puzzle, then complete that process one more time by doing a third light puzzle, and the 3 energy beams have now been lined up with the seals of the vault. We travel on one last chain ride over the breathtaking blue Quicksilver and go up some twisting ramps while defeating enemies along the way. And then we finally reach the Quicksilver, which the Weapon Master calls the very essence of all magic, and now it's in our possession. So back at the ruins, Hugo says that we must find the eternal magic source, as it's the final source we need to complete the core, and the Weapon Master says he can help us get it, and it's located in the Archean's locked away ancient armory, which, real quick, doesn't make that much sense, because if you remember correctly, at the beginning of the game, the core of light was still intact, which means the eternal magic source was in it. But here they're saying that the eternal magic source is locked away in the Archean's ancient armory. How did it get there if it was in the core? You know what? It doesn't matter. So we agree to go to the Archean Armory, chapter 21, to get the final source. So when we first get into the level, it is very dark and you can barely see. The Weapon Master says we need to turn back on the power, but doing this will also awaken the ancient Archean defenses. When we find the power button, we turn on the armory light and see a bunch of giant Archeans below us, which is awesome looking. After fighting some Archean defense drones, we hop into one of the giant Archean mechs, and this is where my problems with the level start. This Archean mech is so damn clunky. It is so hard to use. You can't just move around your aim cursor to destroy the little Archean drones flying at you. When you do move your aim cursor, it moves your whole body, and the mech is super slow, so a lot of enemies will be able to attack you before you can get an attack off. Then near the end of this glorified turret section, you must fight another Archean mech, and this sucks. The game tells you that the enemy machine is vulnerable when it's about to attack, but what the game doesn't tell you is that you should use your shooting attack instead of hitting it with the punching attack for the mech. So like an idiot, I tried punching it to death and almost died when it would have been a lot easier to just shoot it. I know that's like more of a skill issue, but just tell me to shoot it instead of punch it. It would have been a lot easier to get the section over with quicker. After we get past that Archean mech, we get out of our mech and we get to play actual Skylanders gameplay. Thank goodness. The Weapon Master tells us that the eternal magic source is at the center of the main vault of the temple, but in order to unlock it, we need to activate 3 switches in smaller vaults with a security card. So we go down to the lower level of the temple and get the security card, which looks nothing like a card. We go back up to the top layer of the temple and turn on the first switch, and to the right is the second switch, which we activate. But this final switch is on the bottom layer of the temple, and there's a bunch of enemies in our way, but I just passed them because I didn't need to defeat them to get back down to the bottom layer. After activating the final switch of the vault, it opens up and the eternal magic source is ours for the taking. So I went up back to the vault, ignoring all the enemies trying to kill me, and got the final source we need to complete the core of light. Then we get a cutscene showing the eternal magic source, powering up the core of light, finally getting it to work at its full potential, and shooting a beam into the sky, ridding the Skylands of darkness. We then get a KAOS cutscene showing Glumshanks back at KAOS's fortress burned up because he jumped in lava. KAOS asks him what's the matter, but then we see the sky around the fortress bright up, and the light opens up the windows of KAOS's fortress, and it's so bright both Glumshanks and KAOS can barely see. KAOS tells Glumshanks to get them back to the Outlands as fast as possible as the darkness is gone. We finally did it. We completed the MacGuffin that was the core of light. I mean, just like think of how many things went into this. The twin spouts of Ocean Major Minor, the crystal eye, the golden gear, the green goo of, what was it, like Primeridia or something like that, the skull mask of the undead king, the crucible of the ages, the Quicksilver, and all 8 elemental sources. But it feels like it's taken forever, but we're finally here. We have completed the core of light, but there's still one thing to do. Defeat KAOS. But unfortunately, we cannot do that yet. You see, when I made my Superchargers video, I did not have to deal with the trouble of going through Adventure Pack or DLC levels because they don't exist in Superchargers. They don't have any. But in Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, there are 4 Adventure Pack levels. I was wondering if I should like spread these levels out, talk about them, talk about like one Adventure Pack level between like every 4 chapters or every 5 chapters. But eventually I just decided that I would make an intermission segment for the DLC levels. And I felt like doing it right before the final level was actually the perfect place to do it. I feel like having an intermission right before the final level would just kind of give that final level more gravitas, like more importance. It's like, oh, we're almost there, but we're not there quite yet. We're almost there, but we have to do one more task. So let's hop right into it. As you can see, I have my vacation clothes on, my vacation attire. I got a smoothie with me right now because I like to consider these adventure pack levels a vacation, a nice getaway from the main game. Now, even though these levels are stated as happening after the main game in the level menu, they never actually say when these adventure pack levels take place. I've always liked to imagine that the 3DS games and the adventure pack levels take place in between the 2 Skylanders games. So Skylanders Spyro's Adventure came out in late 2011 and Skylanders Giants came out in late 2012. So I would imagine that the 3DS game and the adventure pack levels took place in summer 2012. Now, things that happen in later 3DS games or later adventure pack levels might contradict this, but let's go with that now. I'm going to talk about these levels in order of how the Skylanders wiki says they take place in. So the first level we're going to talk about is the Empire of Ice. Let's get right into it. Each adventure pack came out with the adventure pack level and 1 Skylander and 2 magic items. Now, we won't talk about the magic items because they don't really matter, but the Empire of Ice came out with Slam Bam. Each time you put an adventure pack level on the portal for the first time, you get a cutscene kind of giving you a quick background of what the purpose of the level is. Here, Eon tells us that Haldor, the great northern wizard, needs our help. We need to help him save his village, which is stuck in an icy grip of endless winter by evil ice ogres. When we enter the level, Haldor greets us. He says that this icy wasteland used to be a sunny paradise, but then the ice ogres moved in and built a giant wall that locked the place into winter. But Haldor tells us that he has a plan with his giant snowball launcher, which isn't built all the way, and we need to help him find the missing parts of the snowball launcher. Each of the adventure pack levels has some sort of gimmick inside of it. In this one, the gimmick is that there are some areas that have ice floors which make your Skylanders slip around and move faster. We go through the Empire more and meet up with Haldor again, and we see a key, and behind the locked gate that key opens is Haldor's snowball launcher. A nice touch here is that I'm pretty sure the Empire of Ice was released around Christmas, and some of the enemies have Santa hats on. After we get the key and open the gate, we find the first missing piece of the snowball launcher. Haldor shows us where the next piece is, and we go down and grab it, and then hop on a teleportation pad to an icy area with a lot of holes. This is where the ice being slippery comes into play, as we have to avoid falling in the holes while moving around. After we get out of this section, we have to go on one more, but here is the third part of the launcher. Haldor says the fourth part is in a battlefield that he describes as Cyclops territory, and that they use real artillery shells and not snowballs. Haldor wasn't lying about this area being Cyclops territory. There are a ton here, but after clearing them out, we make our way up a snowy hill and find the last part, and now the snowball catapult is complete. We use the catapult to destroy a giant wall, which is technically a boss fight because the wall has a health bar, which is weird. Once we destroy the wall, the snow starts to melt and makes the place a nice spring valley again. And the level is over, and it's a decent level, and I don't know if I'm asking for too much here, but I would have liked to have been able to explore the Empire of Ice after you freed it from the endless winter. Either way, next up is Pirate Seas, and the conflict here is that some swashbuckler named Jess Legrand has come to us asking for help because the evil Captain Dreadbeard and his Sea Dog pirates have taken over her village. Oh, and the Skylander that came with this adventure pack is Terrafin. When we arrive at the Pirate Seas, Legrand tells us that the pirates make people play a card game, but they cheat, and when you lose, they take you as a prisoner. If you couldn't tell, the gimmick in this level is playing that card game. The card game you play is like just a memory card game where you have to match cards, and each pirate you play against in this card game gets progressively harder to beat as the level goes on. The first pirate, Fangs, only has 6 cards, meaning there are only 3 pairs, but the final card game you play against the infamous Captain Dreadbeard has 24 cards. I have always loved when Skylanders use a pirate theme for a level, and obviously here we have a pirate theme. Pirate enemies all around, like the Sea Dog Skippers, Sea Dog Pirates, and Captain Canines. The second pirate you play is Bandit, and after beating him in the card game, you free the mayor of the Pirate Seas, Mayor Legrand. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this is Jess's dad. The mayor tells us that the pirates have stolen all the town's treasure and are loading it into their ship, and they're going to take it to their island fortress. However, to get to the ship, we need to get past another pirate named Chance. After beating him in a card game, the bridge behind him lowers and we can make our way to the ship, and just kidding, we have to beat another pirate in a card game, this one being named Wolf. And of course, right after beating Kim, we have to do another card game with the pirate Doggerts. I like how all these pirates have like these piratey sounding names, you know, these weird names. There was Fang, Bandit, Doggerts, and Wolf. And then there's just Chance. I like, why do they do that? Finally, after the Doggerts card game, we find Dreadbeard, and of course he wants us to face him in a card game. If the card game was just matching cards, how did the pirates cheat at this game? They don't play it, they just watch you. It doesn't really make that much sense. Whatever, after beating this card game, Dreadbeard says he told us that he would leave if we beat him, but he never said he would leave empty-handed, as he now has all the town's treasure, and says he's also got a special prize from the mayor, and we see that he has captured Jess LeGrand. We go back to the mayor to tell him what happened, and he says we must find her, but he doesn't know where the pirates went. Then this random dude called the Shipmaster says that they hide out at Plunder Island and he will take us there. How convenient. The next part is pretty awesome though. We get to man a pirate ship and destroy the pirate islands, but we have to avoid the cannon fire from the pirate defenses. Once we take down the island, we go see Dreadbeard one more time, and he has us play one more card game. So yeah, it's a bit anticlimactic at the end, but we beat Dreadbeard, and Dreadbeard, being so embarrassed by being beaten in a memory card game by the Skylanders, jumps off the island into the vast sea, and with that the Pirate Seas experience is over. I think overall I like this level a bit less than I used to because there's just so many memory game sections, and I really didn't remember it being that many, but it's still a fun level to play. Okay, our third adventure pack level is the Dark Light Crypt, one of the most interesting levels in Skylanders history in my opinion. The Skylander that came in this pack is Ghost Roaster, so let's get right into it. When we arrive at the crypt, we are greeted by a baker named Batterson. He explains to us that he has fallen on hard times with his baking business. He set up his bakery outside of an undead town because he thought who needs pies more than the undead, and he was actually right about this somehow. He was selling pies to all sorts of ghosts and creatures, and it got to the point where they are only eating his pies and not the brains of the living. But all of a sudden, the undead residents of the town have stopped showing up. After this, Batterson shows us the gimmick for this level, which is realm switching. If you use what he calls spectral shifting platforms, you can switch between the undead realm and the living realm. And also, certain things change when you are in the ghost and living world. The giant gate at the beginning of the level is closed in the living world, but when we go to the undead world, it's open. So we go through the big gate and try to find the town of the undead and investigate to see why they've stopped coming to get Batterson's pies. So after we go into the undead world and go through the gate, we see a giant floating skeleton eyeball appear out of nowhere named Oculus. He points out that we are not ghosts, and we move on. After doing some realm hopping puzzles, we finally make it to the town and meet a ghost named Gallons. He tells us that an evil eyeball came to town and outlawed all pies, and that he wants the ghost to do terrible things to the living, but the ghosts in the undead town really just want to leave the living alone and eat pies. Gallon asks us to help the ghost kick out Oculus out of the town for good. However, he states this won't be easy because we have to go through a maze to get to his lair. When we find the maze, we have to move some blocks and realm hop to find keys to open a gate to the exit, and then we can finally take on Oculus. To defeat Oculus, you need to be in the living world. However, Oculus switches it to the undead world. To get back to the living world, you have to use an activator, and while you have time in the living world, you shoot cannons at Oculus. Oculus will shoot lasers out of his eyes, which are very easy to avoid, and will switch back to the undead world since he can't be defeated there. After 3 cannon shots, you defeat Oculus, and he kind of just swirls around in the bottom of a hole. But now the ghosts are freed, and they can eat all the pie they want from Batterson. So this level is good, but Oculus just feels very rushed. He appears for a bit at the beginning and says 2 sentences to you, and then it's revealed that he is evil. Then you fight him. I believe on Wii versions, Oculus will talk to you more throughout the level, but I'm playing on the 360, so I didn't get that. The chapter overall is still a good and fun experience. Also, fun fact, Cinder was originally planned to be the Skylander in this adventure pack, but they later switched it to Ghost Roaster. Alright, the 4th and final adventure pack level is the Dragon's Peak, and it's also in my opinion the best out of these 4 levels. The Skylander given to you in this adventure pack is Sunburn, which is weird since there are other dragons to pick from, and they went like with a phoenix instead, but who cares. An awesome thing about this level is that in the hub world, when you go to the Dragon Peaks level access point, you get picked up by a dragon and taken away to the chapter, which is pretty sweet if you ask me. This dragon drops us off at the beginning of the level and tells us his name is Flavius and that he serves the great King Ramses. King Ramses ruled the Dragon's Peak for centuries, and everything was great until one day when Flavius convinced the king to fly with him. While they were flying, King Ramses' brother Vathic, who is evil, came to the peak and sat on the dragon's throne, which is where all the power comes from. Flavius says he who sits on the throne becomes the ruler of all Dragon's Peak, which seems like a pretty bad system if you ask me, since like anyone can sit on the throne, but okay. When Vathic became king, he cursed Ramses and turned him into stone, so we have to go save King Ramses, then defeat Vathic. First things first, this level is beautiful looking. Like, it really does look like a place in the Skylands. Vast sky with floating islands all over the place. Yeah, this is like the Skylands of Skylands, you know what I mean? One of the first things we do in this chapter is save Ramses. This happens within like a minute of the level starting, which does kind of ruin the stakes a bit, as you only need to get past the one Arcane guard to wake up Ramses, but I guess banishing Vathek is more important for this level, so I'll let it slide. Here, Ramses introduces us to this adventure pack's gimmick, which is flying. He says if you use the dragon horn, Flavius will come and we can ride him to get to the next part of the chapter. You know, I do enjoy these flying sections, even if they are quite simple. They don't break up the level too much, and it makes the area feel even bigger than it actually is, which is pretty cool. However, what I do have a problem with is that the level itself isn't that big. Like, when you call Flavius to fly you stay in that area for like less than a minute, then you call him again to fly to the next area. Only like 2 parts of the level you fly to are longer than like a minute. And that is because the flying gimmick is done so many times here. I counted, and there are 7 flying sections, which I believe is a bit unnecessary because I would rather be playing bigger parts of the chapter with less flying sections than smaller parts with more flying sections, but that's just me. After the 7th flying section, we get to the final island. We make our way past some statues that shoot out fire and hop on a few bounce pads to finally meet Vathek. And he gives us the normal bad guy spiel about how we're not going to defeat him. But before we can get to that, Vathek first summons his minions. Once we defeat his minions, we can jump on some more bounce pads and make it to the top of Dragon's Peak. Vathek once again sends out more waves of minions, but then he finally has had enough and jumps off the throne. And the Vathek boss battle begins, and I am just kidding. Did you really think we get a cool boss battle in Skylanders Spyro's adventure? Flavius appears and takes over the throne. He tells Vathek he no longer has any power, and he will pay for betraying Ramses. A bright light beams down, and Vathek is turned into stone. Flavius then gives up the throne and lets Ramses sit on it again. Ramses asks him why he did this, as he could have all the power, and Flavius says that there is only one true king of Dragon's Peak, and that is Ramses. Kind of glazing if you ask me. However, Ramses says that once the day comes where he will step down, he knows who will take his place. So, quick question. Does the dragon that sits on the throne, you know, that rules the Dragon's Peak, do they just never leave their throne? Because like I said, it's a pretty bad system, because you just have to sit on the throne and never leave it if you want to have all the power. Because you can just go off the throne to, you know, stretch your wings for a sec, and then boom, all of a sudden someone sits on the throne and then has all the power, usurps all your power. Like I said, it's a pretty bad system. I also like how King Ramses never indirectly said Flavius would take his place. He certainly implied it, but he never said that Flavius would take his place. So it could be someone else. It could be us for all we know. Looking back and reading the script, I feel like I was very harsh towards Dragon's Temple, even though it is my favorite adventure pack level out of the 4. Like, I know I really went home about how there was too much flying in this level, which is true, but like, it's still fun to do, and it's still a very beautiful looking level. I love this level. If I had to rank the adventure pack levels, it would be Dragon's Peak first, then it would be Pirate Seas, then it would be Darklight Crypt, and pretty easily, honestly, for me, Empire of Ice is last. I don't know if I got this across when I was talking about these, but I do really love the fact that they implemented adventure pack levels in these games. Because like I said, it's a nice break or, you know, vacation from the main game, because playing the main game at some points can be a slog, you know, it can be very hard to get through. So it's fun to have these little adventure levels to go on that don't really have any impact on the story. It's fun. And I wish that every single game had adventure pack levels. I'm looking at you, Superchargers and Giants. You know, they're like fun side quests, which is why it would have been so cool to have a Skylanders open world game, because you get to have more of these experiences that aren't tailored to the story. You can just kind of have fun in these little side quests. It's honestly a really nice time to have. But vacations, just like everything else, do eventually come to an end, unfortunately. Wow, this is actually really good. But for real this time, we only have one more level to talk about. So, let's see what the final level of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure has for us. We stand around with the other main NPCs looking at the completive core of light. Flynn remarks that Skylands can now thank him. Callie states that he needs to get over himself and that she doesn't feel like things are done yet. Flynn says this is because they haven't gone on the date yet and gives a rare double boom. But Hugo agrees with Callie, commenting that while the core of light has saved Skylands from the darkness, the wrath of chaos is still present, as whatever he used to destroy the core of light is still around and could destroy it again. General Robot runs over to us and announces that we are going to take the fight to KAOS, where he lives in his home base. The General tells us that the core of light has revealed his location in the Outlands. Hugo responds by saying, "I could positively kiss you," which is a weird moment for sure.
That's it? General Robot, I could positively kiss you.
At ease, soldier.
After that, Hugo snaps out of it and says the core of light itself can take us to chaos. Hugo punches a couple of coordinates on a keypad by the core and a bubble appears around us and flies us to the fortress. Callie shares that she wishes that they could go with us to take on chaos, and Hugo says that he believes this is something that our heroes must do alone. So we are here at the lair of chaos in the Outlands. We hear Eon and he tells us that only us, the Portal Masters, can defeat chaos and rid his evil from Skylands. Pretty much all of what the level part of the lair of chaos is going down paths, finding locked gates, and having to find keys for them. Infamously, the Wii and XPEC versions of the lair of chaos are set up very differently. In the XPEC versions, which is basically just not the Wii versions, you have to go on floating platforms, which take forever to get some keys, while on the Wii version, you just go down 2 paths. Now, I know this is a hot take because a lot of people swear by the Wii versions, at least for Spyro's Adventure, and say that they are better, but this is one of the only things, in my opinion, that the XPEC version does worse than the Wii version. Besides that, however, surprisingly, I guess you can say, there isn't that much to do in the level part of Chaos's lair. You just fight some enemies and get your keys to open up gates, and make your way to Chaos's fortress to take him on in the boss fight. As we approach Chaos's fortress, it turns upside down, revealing an arena with Chaos on it. When we walk to Chaos, Chaos yells that we have played right into his hands. He points out that while we have reformed the core, we have followed him into his realm where he is all powerful, and the boss fight commences. Chaos's chair starts floating, he spikes into the ground, and an evil minion appears. Would you believe me if I told you that Chaos never indirectly fights us during this fight? Well, you should believe me if you don't. Okay, so after we defeat the first evil minion, a second one appears, and you might not believe it, but then a third one appears. After you defeat all 3, Chaos says that now we will have to face the most hideous and powerful of all of his minions. Then the platform we are on floats even higher in the air. Chaos says this minion destroyed the core of light and will do it again, and Chaos's Hydra is finally revealed in the game. Whenever one of the heads of the Hydra attacks, it will perform the elemental spell that we have already seen in the game. After dodging some of the Hydra spells, Chaos spawns Evil Stump Smash and Evil Slam Bam, and they both got pieced up by my Trigger Happy. Later, Chaos spawned Evil Ruptor again and got destroyed by Trigger Happy also. Chaos after this brings all the minions back and says he's done with them, and that he has 3 more minions that deserve to fight us even more. So he brings in Evil Stealth Elf, Zap, and Ghost Roaster. Chaos uses lightning to destroy all the former minions and uses their XP to level up all the new minions, but we eventually get to all 3 of them and trounce all of them. Chaos then has the bright idea to just bring in 3 new minions, because of course that will work. Those being Chop Chop, Zook, and Sunburn. And you know what, Chaos? Good idea. Chop Chop single-handedly killed my Trigger Happy. I swear, dude, Chop Chop was on one in this playthrough. He has never been this hard to defeat. But my Stealth Elf made quick work of him. Oh my goodness, Chaos again spawns 3 new minions, Hex, Flameslinger, and Gilgrunt. And guess what? We defeat them, because they're not Chop Chop. Chaos finally gives up on the minions, stating that he only needs the Hydra, and for the rest of the fight, we just get past spell attacks and damage Chaos in his chair, and eventually we vanquish him. You know, I hate to say it, but after playing hours of this game, and all those things, this boss battle is bad. There is nothing new here. Everything that you do in this boss battle, you have already done before. And that just makes it so frustrating. I seriously don't understand why we couldn't get anything new here. Anything that is something new, creative, like literally anything. And the worst part about it is that this really isn't even a Chaos boss fight, because like he never actually attacks you himself. He just gets other things to do it for him, either his minions or his Hydra. I really don't know how to say it. It is a terrible boss fight. It is bad. It is a waste of your time. It is evil minions and spells and pretty much nothing else. And it's sad because the levels honestly before this were setting up something pretty epic at the end of the game. And to get that, well, that was just disappointing. But we have finished the game. So let's see how the last cutscene, at least hopefully, wraps up this game with a nice bow. In the final cutscene, we are back at the ruins, and we have Chaos trapped in some sort of energy ball. Chaos blabs about how if we don't release him, we will face his unimaginable doom. Oh hey, the starter pack of Skylanders are here. I just wanted to point that out because it's pretty rare that we see Skylanders at the end of the game in cutscenes, so that's neat. Anyway, Flint tells KAOS that we have heard enough from him, and Callie says she actually agrees with him for once, and that he's not too bad when he's not putting his foot in his mouth. KAOS, displeased with this interaction, then calls out to Eon saying that he knows he is here somewhere, and that they can send him back to the Outlands all they want, but he'll just continue to come back again and again and again. However, Eon informs KAOS that he is not going back to the Outlands this time, and that he has something more fitting for him. Then, Eon asks Hugo to do the honors for him. Hugo starts pressing some coordinates on a keypad, telling KAOS that he's gonna love this, and shoots KAOS off into the sky. And we see him hurling through space, getting smaller and smaller, and eventually landing on Earth. We hear KAOS ask where he is, and then we hear dog noises, and presumably, KAOS gets licked a lot by the dog. We fade to Eon one last time. He notes to us that we have done well, and even though we might have seen the last of the KAOS in the darkness, there is still more to do, and our journey with the Skylanders is only just beginning. And roll credits. Create, dream, achieve. I feel like that's a pretty good, I don't know, mission statement for this video maybe. This is hot cocoa, by the way. It's too hot for me to drink actually right now, but it is one of my favorite things. Like, I literally drink hot cocoa every night. Even on the most humidest summer nights, you will find me drinking hot cocoa. But that's what we're talking about. It's been a couple of months, I think it's been 2 months since I kind of committed myself to finishing this. There were some rough spots that I kind of didn't get anything done. That I kind of just, you know, I just kind of lost interest in the video. But it's finally here, completed, and it feels pretty awesome. Skylanders has always been, you know, very close to my heart, especially Spyro's Adventure, because it really was, at least like in my memory, pretty much the first console game that I ever played. I remember getting it for Christmas at my grandparents' house in 2011, playing it, and I couldn't stop playing it. It was so much fun. So, you know, despite there being, you know, a lot of issues, a lot of problems with this game, you know, there's always just some nostalgia to the game that, you know, brings me coming back to play it. You know, I've sat and talked about this game for a couple hours, I feel like, at this point. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm estimating that it's probably not going to be as long as my Superchargers video, but it might. I think it probably will make it past the 2-hour mark. But, you know, I've sat here and talked about it for a long time, and, you know, it feels like there's probably nothing to talk about, but I'll try. Despite me having a lot of issues with Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, I'll always give it credit that it kind of started this rise to Toys to Life.
He said it! He said it!
I'm pretty sure I'm naming this video Skylanders Spyro's Adventure: The Rise to Toys to Life. And you see a lot of other games after Spyro's Adventure comes out, like Dimensions and Disney Infinity. And like I said, it started this rise to Toys to Life that was really like super popular for a good 5-6 years. So I'll always give Spyro's Adventure, you know, credit, despite it not really having a gimmick, that it laid the good groundwork for other Skylanders games in the future to be even greater at it then, you know? But, like I said in the very beginning of this video, we're not done yet, because by the time this video comes out, I've only made 2 reviews for this, and we have to finish it. I really want to finish it. So, I can't promise when it will come out, but you guys should expect my next video to be the Skylanders Giants retrospective video. I have a feeling that video might be the shortest one that I do, just because it has, I think, 16 chapters, no DLC levels, so there isn't that much to talk about. But I'll be tackling a lot of topics that I felt like I should have talked about here, but I feel like they fit more in the Giants video. The main one being which game do I like more, Skylanders Spyro's Adventures, Giants, because those 2 games are pretty much the most similar out of any Skylanders games. You know, this video took a while. At the time that making this video, I think it just went over 6 months, so half a year that I made a video. But hopefully, you know, if you guys like these longer videos, it's worth it, because probably my next video, like I said, it's gonna be this Skylanders Giants video. Now, I don't think that every single video back to back are going to be these long retrospective videos, but like I said, I do want to get this done with, you know, I want to make this Swap Force retrospective, the Trap Team retrospective, you know, the Imagineers retrospective, And I want to get it done relatively soon. You know, whatever that means for me. I haven't uploaded in 6 months. Oh yeah, that's good. If you like I don't know, I recommend trying hot cocoa. I think it's a really great drink. But yeah, there isn't really much left to talk about. So yeah. If you made it all the way through, I don't normally say this, but if you did watch all the way through, maybe consider liking, you know, subscribing, because more videos like this will be out in the near future. But with all that being said, I'm SGTV. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching.